Chapter 1564. Gift. Everyone present was more or less surprised by Shadora's words. Although it had been mentioned many times, it still had to be mentioned here. The so-called another cosmology was a gift that was more than 3 digits above the box. With that kind of gift, Noah was able to seal the strongest species of the gods and star spirits. Aziz Dakaha relied on it to repel millions of gods. Even Galji relied on it to release the power of Vishnu's avatar that corresponded to the sovereignty of the sun in his hand. The effect was not small. To put it bluntly, with the another cosmology, even if one could not dominate the box, it was absolutely no problem for one to be free and unfettered. Now, Shadora was giving such a gift to Noah. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. However, Shadora didn't mind it at all and smiled. Indeed, another cosmology is a very powerful gift, but I don't think you can find anyone in Salamandra who can use it. Since that's the case, it's better to give it to someone who can use it. That way, it'll be of great value. Just because of that? Noah could not help but ask. Just because I can use the another cosmology, you plan to give me the important gift left by your ancestors? Of course, that's not all. Shadora looked at Noah. Mr. Noah once blocked Aziz Dakaha alone and bought time for the people of Flame City to retreat. If it was not for Mr. Noah, not only Salamandra, but even the residents of Flame City would have all been killed. You have done a great favor for Salamandra, and I have been troubled about how to repay it. Now, I am just giving a precious gift that can be seen but can't be used to Mr. Noah. Shadora's young and cute face was filled with determination. Moreover, the ruler of the East District, the star spirit of the sun, White Yiksha, is even willing to transfer the sovereignty of the sun to you in order to save the people of the lower realm. As the ruler of the North District, I will not be stingy. As she said this, Shadora looked straight at Noah. So, Mr. Noah, please help us defeat Aziz Dakaha and maintain order in the box from the Demon King. Everyone was touched by Shadora's words. Shadora is right. Sarah stepped forward and said to Noah. Mr. Noah is the only trump card on our side that can defeat Aziz Dakaha. In order to protect the box, if we can help Mr. Noah, we will definitely do it. I am also the ruler of the South District. If Mr. Noah has anything that Dragonhorn Griffin Lion to do, please do not hesitate. Seeing that Sarah and Shadora, the two rulers of the hierarchy, had expressed their opinions, the people of no name were all silent. Noah looked at the determined expressions on Sarah and Shadora's faces and could not help but think of White Yiksha. Noah had encountered many people like rulers of the hierarchy who were entrusted with the responsibility of protecting order in many worlds in the past. However, Noah had not seen many people who could truly protect order from the bottom of their hearts. For example, in the world of the Black Bullet, Noah had encountered political darkness. He had lived in that world for a year and a half, so he was very clear about it. However, whether it was White Yiksha, Sarah, or Shadora, these rulers of the hierarchy not only held important positions, but they also lived up to their positions. They all maintained order in the lower realm of the box from the bottom of their hearts and protected the safety of the box's residents. For this reason, White Yiksha did not hesitate to transfer the sovereignty of all 14 sons to Noah, and Shadora did not intend to take back the another cosmology left behind by her ancestors. All of this was because these rulers of the hierarchy had placed their hopes of protecting order on Noah. After clearly understanding this, Noah glanced at Sarah, then at Shadora, suddenly smiled, and nodded. I will do my best. Although they did not receive any guarantees, Noah's words made Sarah and Shadora's expressions relax, and they smiled slightly. At this moment, a voice sounded in the throne room. Your Excellency Noah. Hearing the call, Noah turned his head, looked at the source of the voice, and then narrowed his eyes. The rest of the people present also looked over. When they saw the full appearance of the person, they all looked at each other. The person who came was Faith Reese. The pure white Queen Paladin walked over from the other side of the throne room and looked at Noah with a serious expression that had never been seen before. Can we talk? At this time last night, Faith made the same request. Today, the Queen Paladin, who had not been able to show her face while the gods in the heavens surrounded the vampire castle, now appeared and made the same request. Most of the people present more or less knew what Phase C was planning to do. Therefore, Noah did not talk to Faith alone like last night. Instead, he directly spoke. "If you want me to release the sealed Celtic gods, then I think we have nothing to talk about." This sentence made Faith's breath stop, and she said in shock, "Your Excellency Noah, you don't plan to release the sealed gods?" "Why should I release them?" Noah said as if it was a matter of fact. "They are here to cause trouble for me. I think, for the sovereignty of the sun, they would not mind getting rid of me, so why should I let them go?" But. Faith could not react in time. "If you do that, it's the same as making an enemy of all the gods in the box court." "Making an enemy of all the gods in the box court?" Noah raised an eyebrow and said this sarcastically. "Then after I get more than half of the sun's sovereignty, it's already decided, right?" Faith was speechless. Clearly, the Queen Paladin did not expect Noah to not release the sealed gods. This was not a joke. Almost every one of the gods sealed by Noah was a famous existence in their respective mythological systems. If Noah did not release them, then almost every god would be dealt a fatal blow. If that happened, Noah and all the gods in the box court would be in a relationship that would not end until one of them was dead. Faith did not expect Noah to be so serious. Seeing Faith fall into a state of speechlessness, Noah pursed his lips and said this. "There is a saying in the East. If people do not offend me, I will not offend them. If people offend me, I will definitely offend them. Since the gods in the heaven realm want to deal with me, then I have no reason to play games with them. The gods came out in full force just to get the sovereignty of the sun from my hands. Now that you've lost to me, you want me to let you go obediently? Do you really think I don't have a temper?" Noah glanced at Phase C. "Whether it is the Celtic gods or the other gods, since they are targeting me today, then they should not have any complaints about being sealed by me, right?" Phase C fell silent. After a while, she sighed. "Let's not talk about the other gods for now, but you have imprisoned the Celtic gods. The Queen will not compromise." "The Queen of Halloween?" Noah's eyes flashed. In the next second, he laughed. "Well, I also want to see how powerful the existence that White Yiksha regards as an enemy is." After saying this, Noah looked directly at Faith. "Of course, before that, let the Queen of Halloween prepare the means to deal with my another cosmology. Otherwise, there is no need to even compete." After saying this, Noah turned around and walked in another direction. Everyone looked at each other and did not know what to say for a moment. Only Pest looked at Noah's back as he gradually left. Her eyes flashed with an inexplicable splendor. Chapter 1565. After leaving the main hall of the throne hall, Noah turned directly into the corridor and returned to his room. Gotcha. After closing the door, Noah took off his coat and casually threw it on the table beside him. Then, he lay down on the bed and gently breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't expect those guys from the God group to suddenly launch an attack. Undoubtedly, only 1 or 2 days have passed since White Yiksha transferred the sovereignty of the sun to me. Although Noah had long been prepared to confront the various God groups in the upper echelons of the box court, he really did not expect them to suddenly gather together and come out in full force. After all, there were only a dozen or so sun sovereigns, but there were thousands of God groups above. If they joined forces and attacked together, and in the end, if they succeeded in obtaining the sovereignty of the sun from Noah, how would they divide it? The saying that there were too many monks and too little meat referred to this situation. Even if more than half of the sun's sovereigns had to be obtained in order to create a new box court, after the new box court was created, there would still be only a few sun sovereigns. In that case, it was impossible for those God groups not to be moved by the sun sovereigns. In view of this, in Noah's imagination, the various God groups in the upper echelons should not be in a very friendly state. It should be impossible for all of them to join forces and attack him at once. In the end, the God groups in the upper echelons still joined forces and gave Noah a chance to catch them all in one fell swoop. It can't be said that I caught them all in one fell swoop, right? Noah murmured. Those gods in the upper echelons must still have some that have not been mobilized. For example, Noah did not see any two-digit existences. Also, those who occupied dominant positions in various mythological systems, and even those who were main gods and god-kings, were also not present. However, that's more normal, Noah said to himself. They have already mobilized such an army of gods. There's no reason for even the Lord and the generals to follow, right? As he said this, Noah's eyes flashed. Thanks to this, perhaps I didn't encounter an existence that also holds another cosmology. Otherwise, it might not have ended so easily today. After saying that, Noah suddenly smiled. Moreover, this time, I sealed all the god groups in the heaven realm. Not only did it allow me to take control, but it also gave me an unexpected reward. Previously, Noah could only passively wait for the upper echelons of the gods to attack. Now, Noah had sealed many groups of gods in the heaven realm, which was equivalent to obtaining a large group of hostages. Under such circumstances, the gods of the heaven realm would no longer dare to act rashly against Noah. At the very least, a situation like today, where he was surrounded by a sky full of gods and Buddhas, would never happen again. Noah had completely taken control of the situation. The unexpected harvest was obtained by Noah after he sealed the gods and Buddhas in the sky. With such thoughts in mind, Noah flicked his wrist. Following Noah's action, a piece of parchment shining with starlight appeared in Noah's hand. Looking at the shining parchment in his hand, Noah couldn't help but smile. I never thought that one day, I would actually have the authority to be the organizer. Organizer authority. The special authority that could ignore the wishes of the participants and force them to participate in the bestowment game. The existence that abused the organizer authority would fall into the Devil King. However, in fact, the essence of the organizer authority was not used to nourish the growth of evil, but the opposite. From the beginning, the existence of the organizer authority was to prevent the appearance of evil. For example, the rulers of the various regions all had the organizer authority. The main purpose of having this kind of authority was to allow the game of blessings to play a better role in entertaining the people in the box court. The other purpose was to punish the evil existence when there was a huge threat that destroyed the order of the box court. To punish the offender's trial. To confirm the trial of the heart of faith. To welcome the trial of a new evolution. To give the world the right to enforce the trial of goodness. That was the original purpose of the organizer authority. In fact, Noah had even heard that the organizer authority was to defeat the oldest devil king in the final trial of mankind. It was created as a means to fight against the oldest devil king. Therefore, the organizer authority was not a bad thing. It was only later that it was abused. Right now, the parchment in Noah's hand was the organizer authority granted to Noah by the box court. That was because Noah had sealed 1,000,000 deities. Pest was an undead created by the Black Death when the sun entered the Little Ice Age. This spirit allowed her to obtain the organizer authority to take revenge against the sun. Now, Noah had sealed 1,000,000 deities. This action seemed to have been approved by the central authority of the box court. Therefore, the central authority of the box court gave Noah the organizer authority. Because Noah had sealed 1,000,000 deities, he obtained the organizer authority. This authority was also used to target the bestowment game of the deities. If the opponent was not a deity, then the organizer authority would not be able to be used. However, if the opponent was a deity, then the bestowment game of the organizer authority would give Noah a huge advantage when facing a deity. If he had obtained the organizer authority before sealing the deities, then perhaps those deities would not have ended up being sealed. Instead, they would have been massacred. From this point of view, those deities should feel lucky. Unfortunately, the organizer authority is a system unique to the box court. It is also impossible to use it in other worlds. Noah played with the glowing parchment in his hand. He could not help but feel some regret. However, Noah was not too obsessed with this benefit that he had inadvertently obtained. The other worlds might not necessarily have the existence of deities. Being able to use it in this box court is already enough. With this thought in mind, Noah put away the glowing parchment in his hand without any reluctance. Knock, knock, knock. Right at this moment, a series of soft knocks sounded from the door. Noah was slightly startled. However, he subconsciously opened his mouth to speak. The door is not locked. Just come in. After saying that, the door did not immediately open. After waiting for a while, Noah, who did not see the door open, looked at the door in confusion. At practically the same time, the person outside seemed to have made up her mind and opened the door. The person who came in from outside the door was a person that surprised Noah. Pest. Surprisingly, it was Pest. However, at this moment, Pest was not wearing a maid outfit. Instead, she was wearing a poisonous flower-like dress with black and white spots on it. The sleeves of the dress were very long, and she was wearing snow boots. There were also 2 black and white ribbons tied around her head. Her attire was exactly the same as when Noah first met Pest, when she was still the Black Death Spot Demon King. After becoming Noah's subordinate, it was not as if Pest had never worn those clothes again. However, she would only change into this attire when in battle. Normally, she would wear a maid outfit. And now, Pest had arrived before Noah in this attire. Naturally, it was not because she wanted to fight against Noah. However, Noah managed to detect something from Pest's attire. Thus, Noah quietly sat up and sat on the edge of the bed as he looked at Pest. Before Noah's gaze, Pest's expression became somewhat stiff. The determination she had made with great difficulty started to waver. The reason for that was because it was very likely that Pest would have to display all of herself before Noah. Regarding this matter, Pest was slightly afraid. As if he did not notice Pest's reaction, Noah directly spoke. Is there something you want to tell me? That completely inconsiderate question caused Pest to be unable to help herself from feeling somewhat angry. Undoubtedly, he was very protective and gentle toward other people, even that Vera whom he had just met recently. Why was it that he was not the slightest bit courteous toward her? Had it been any other time, Pest would definitely argue with Noah in a very unconvinced manner. Frankly speaking, this little girl was feeling unbalanced in her heart. However, today, Pest did not plan to mock and ridicule Noah. Looking at Noah, who was sitting before her, Pest recalled how he did not show the slightest bit of fear when facing a million gods. Then, she looked at Noah with a determined expression. I wish to ask you for a favor. Chapter 1566. I would like to ask you for a favor. When those words left Pest's mouth and entered Noah's ears, there was not the slightest trace of surprise on Noah's face. Pest was hiding something in her heart. Noah had long since noticed this. However, in the past, Noah had never paid any attention to this matter. It was not that Noah did not want to pay attention to it. Rather, it was useless even if he did. Since Pest had chosen to hide it, it meant that she did not wish to tell him about it. If that was the case, how could Noah force Pest to tell him what was in her heart? Naturally, that was impossible. It was just like what Letitia said. It was not that Noah did not wish to pay attention to Pest. Rather, he was waiting for Pest to speak. If Pest was unwilling to tell him about it, then Noah's effort to pay attention to her would be in vain. Please. Noah looked at Pest with a meaningful gaze. Is it related to the Demon King Alliance? Sure enough, you already know about my relationship with the Demon King Alliance. Pest let out a rare bitter laugh. Then, she shook her head in denial. Unfortunately, even if you ask me about the Demon King Alliance, I am unable to tell you. After all, I am only a low-level member. I have only joined the Demon King Alliance for a short period of time. Furthermore, before the attack on the Fire Dragon's birth ceremony, I have always been working together with His Highness and Ling. I am simply unable to come into contact with the Demon King Alliance's internal affairs. Thus, even if you want to ask me about the Demon King Alliance's information, you would already know everything that I know. Is that so? Noah sighed. Forget about it. The Demon King Alliance is nothing more than a puppet controlled by the gods. There is no need to pay attention to them. After saying those words, Noah looked at Pest. "In that case, what is the matter that you wish to ask of me?" Hearing those words, Pest hesitated for an instant. She did not know how to start the conversation. However, after a while, Pest lowered her head and spoke with a deep voice. "I wish to ask you to help me change the fate of the Black Death outbreak." "Change the fate of the Black Death?" Noah was slightly startled. He spoke with uncertainty. "What do you mean?" Pest seemed to have decided to throw caution to the wind. She raised her head and looked straight at Noah as she spoke in an extremely serious manner. "I want to change the appearance of the Black Death and erase the history of its occurrence." "Erase the history of the Black Death?" Noah frowned. "You're the one controlling the Black Death, right? Can't you do that yourself?" "If it was that simple, I wouldn't be so vexed." Pest bit her lips. "Do you know? I've traveled to many parallel worlds and confirmed the outbreak of the Black Death in all of them. At that time, I knew that the Black Death wasn't a simple natural disaster. It was an event that had obtained the support of the stars and contained a strong absolute destiny." Pest's words caused Noah's heart to pound. "It seems that you've already guessed it." Pest laughed in a self-mocking manner. "Actually, it's not that hard to guess. The outbreak of the Black Death is related to the sun's cycle. It's the lazy sun that caused the outbreak of the Black Death. If the sun hadn't entered the Little Ice Age, the Black Death wouldn't have appeared. Furthermore, this is the case for the other parallel worlds as well." "That's the reason why this is the case," Pest said with resentment and sadness. "The outbreak of the Black Death is definitely not a coincidence. Someone used the sun's sovereignty to reduce the sun's activity to the lowest level, causing the Little Ice Age to appear. It made the outbreak of the Black Death inevitable." Hearing this, Noah understood what Pest wanted to say. Noah looked at Pest. "You want me to use the sun's sovereignty to change the sun's activity, make the Little Ice Age disappear, and completely eliminate the appearance of the Black Death?" "That's right." Pest bit her lips and nodded her head heavily. "This is the reason why I entered the box court, to take revenge against the sun and even degenerate into a demon king." She wanted to change the fate of the Black Death outbreak. Frankly speaking, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens to achieve this wish. Firstly, in order to change the sun's activity, she had to obtain the sun's sovereignty. Since the Black Death outbreak had occurred in all parallel worlds, in order to completely eliminate the fate of the Black Death outbreak, she had to change the sun's activity in all parallel worlds. In order to accomplish this, the amount of sun's sovereignty was not something that could be done with one or two suns' sovereignty. It was because of this that Pest used her authority as the organizer to attack the Fire Dragon birth ceremony during the Fire Dragon birth ceremony. Her purpose was to obtain the White Yiksha who possessed more than half of the sun's sovereignty and change the fate of the Black Death outbreak. The reason why Pest joined the Demon King Alliance was also for the sake of obtaining the sun's sovereignty. Firstly, it was because the Demon King Alliance was active for the sake of obtaining the sun's sovereignty. Secondly, it was because Gagel required 10 suns' sovereignty to complete the spirit. This amount of sun's sovereignty was just what Pest needed. Only by doing this would Pest be able to accomplish her wish, the wish of the 80 million wraiths that died due to the Black Death. Merely obtaining the sun's sovereignty was already as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Furthermore, the troubles that Pest had to face were not limited to these. Even if Pest was truly able to obtain enough sun's sovereignty to change the fate of the Black Death outbreak, she would still attract countless enemies. That was because the Black Death outbreak greatly reduced the number of serfs and their productivity, resulting in the appearance of 80 million victims. At the same time, it also caused the social status of the serfs to rise and advance. Originally, in history, the emancipation of the serfs was delayed until the early 1900s. Such an outcome would ultimately hinder the development of enlightenment, liberalism, and other ideas. Moreover, the Black Death outbreak became the foundation of various countries and religions. It changed the situation of countries and societies, and promoted the evolution of human history. The epidemic that could lead to the extinction of the human race ultimately changed the future of the human race. If the Black Death had not occurred, the development of human history would have been delayed by nearly half a century. In that case, it would have affected the birth of the beliefs of numerous religions. In other words, by eliminating the fate of the Black Death outbreak, the influence of the religious beliefs that were promoted by the Black Death would similarly be greatly reduced. To the gods of the various mythological systems that required belief to support their existence, this was simply something that could not be tolerated. Thus, to change the fate of the Black Death outbreak would mean that Pest would have to become enemies with all of the gods that had increased their belief due to the Black Death. In fact, some of the demon kings that had obtained all sorts of achievements and inheritances due to the Black Death would also bear their fangs at Pest. Moreover, since someone was using the sun's sovereignty to change the sun's activity in the various parallel worlds, causing the Black Death to appear, they would definitely have a goal in mind. Once the appearance of the Black Death was eliminated, these people would view Pest as a thorn in their side. What Pest was doing was purely making an enemy out of a large number of gods and demon kings. Even if she managed to accomplish this wish, Pest would still have to face an unimaginably great enemy. For an existence that was merely in the 5 digits, this was simply too heavy a burden. Even if Pest herself was a god, it would still be the same. However, Noah's performance that exceeded Pest's expectations time and time again had aroused the hope in Pest's heart. Firstly, Noah possessed over half of the sun's sovereignty. He was completely capable of helping Pest accomplish her wish. Secondly, Noah possessed the terrifying ability to seal even 1,000,000 gods. He was completely unafraid of the threat posed by those gods and demon kings that needed to rely on the Black Death outbreak to obtain belief and spiritual power. Thus, Noah was completely capable of helping Pest accomplish her wish. Under such circumstances, how could Pest not have hope for Noah? Thus, after learning that Noah possessed over half of the sun's sovereignty and personally witnessing the scene of Noah sealing 1,000,000 gods, Pest was no longer able to hold back the hope in her heart and sought help from Noah. I know that to you, I am merely a dispensable subordinate. In fact, I have always been your enemy. There is no reason for you to make so many enemies for me. Pest did her best to express her sincerity. However, right now, only you can help me. I hope that you can help me. Noah's eyes flickered slightly and he grew silent. Chapter 1567. Seeing Noah growing silent, Pest's heart began to race. Pest knew that with her relationship with Noah, it would be impossible for her to make Noah agree to such a demanding request. But now, Noah was Pest's hope to fulfill her wish. In Pest's eyes, Noah's silence was undoubtedly a sign of hesitation. At that moment, Pest appeared to be slightly agitated. Of the 24 solar sovereigns, 2/3 of them are now in your hands. There are only 8 solar sovereigns remaining. I do not know if 8 solar sovereigns will be enough to eliminate the outbreak of the Black Death. Thus, only you can accomplish this matter. If you are able to promise me this, I will do anything. Pest could not help but become agitated. Eliminate the outbreak of the Black Death. To Pest, this matter was both her wish and her curse. Firstly, Pest herself had died from the Black Death when she was alive and had become an undead. Secondly, as the representative of the 80 million undead, Pest's existence could be said to be sustained by the deaths of 80 million undead. Those 80 million undead had also died from the Black Death. It could be said that Pest herself was an existence that carried the fate of the Black Death. Eliminating the Black Death was not only Pest's wish. It was also the wish of the 80 million undead standing behind Pest. Thus, it could be said that eliminating the outbreak of the Black Death was the meaning of Pest's existence. If she was unable to accomplish this wish, Pest might degenerate from an undead into a vengeful spirit. Furthermore, she might be entangled by the resentment of the 80 million undead that wished to eliminate the Black Death. She might never be able to make a comeback. Of course, to Pest, this consequence was completely insignificant. The reason for that was because Pest herself also wished to eliminate the fate of the Black Death. If she was unable to accomplish this wish, there would be no need for Pest's existence. At that time, there would be no need for her to degenerate into a vengeful spirit. Pest herself would likely collapse completely. To Pest, this matter was that important. With this, how could Pest not be agitated? Pest's agitated behavior had also awakened the silent Noah. Seeing Pest's incomparably excited appearance, Noah said in a somewhat stunned manner, "I'm not going to reject you. Why are you so agitated?" Huh? Pest immediately let out a voice that sounded like she had gone off the rails. You're not going to reject me? Why would I reject you?" Noah asked in confusion. "Since I already have more than half of the sun's sovereignty, I can completely help you achieve your wish. To me, this matter is just a piece of cake. Is there a reason to refuse?" But. Pest was unable to react. "Aren't you hesitating? Don't tell me you think I'm hesitating because I'm worried about the gods and the Demon King?" Noah curled his lips. "I am now an enemy of all the god groups in the box court, and I have sealed millions of god groups. I have long been enemies with the god groups. Even without you, they would still find trouble with me. Since that is the case, do I still need to worry about them finding trouble with me?" What he said made sense. Thus, Noah had no reason to hesitate about Pest's request. "What I am hesitating about is not your wish," Noah glanced at Pest. "Rather, it is you." "My body?" Pest was stunned. "You don't understand?" "Then I will say it clearly," Noah looked straight at Pest. "Frankly speaking, it is not a good choice for you to come to me for help." After saying those words, Noah stood up before Pest's stunned gaze. He walked over to the window and looked at the sky outside. "If you were to obediently collect the sun's sovereignty and accomplish your wish, although you might attract the hostility of a portion of the god groups and demon kings, it would at most be a few god groups and demon kings. As for me, I am destined to become an enemy of all the god groups in the box court." Noah looked up at the sky and said indifferently, "If you were to come to me for help, I would naturally be able to help you accomplish your wish. However, because of me, you would have to become an enemy of all the god groups in the box court instead of just a portion of the god groups and demon kings. Isn't that even more terrifying than trying to accomplish your wish by yourself?" After he finished saying those words, Noah turned around and cast his gaze toward Pest. "Even so, you still plan to come to me for help?" Pest's expression froze. However, it must be said that what Noah said was very reasonable. If Pest were to accomplish her wish by herself, she might attract the hostility of a portion of the god groups and demon kings. However, that would still be much better than becoming an enemy of all the god groups. If Pest were to ask Noah for help, then, in a situation where Noah was an enemy of all the god groups in the box court, Pest's request would give the higher-up god groups an excuse to make things difficult for Noah. After all, if the enemy was Noah, then those god groups whose faith had weakened due to the disappearance of the Black Death outbreak could definitely seek help from the other god groups that shared a common hatred of Noah. They would work together to deal with Noah and take care of Pest while they were at it. At that time, Pest would not only have to face the hostility of a portion of the god groups and demon kings. Instead, she would have to face the hostility of all the god groups in the box court. There was no need to consider which of the consequences would be more severe. In any case, there are still 8 sun sovereigns. Although 6 of them are in the hands of the Queen of Halloween, becoming an enemy of the Queen of Halloween is still much better than becoming an enemy of all the god groups, right? Noah said helplessly. Perhaps, those 8 sun sovereigns will be able to accomplish your wish? Hearing up to this point, Pest finally understood. Noah was only worried about her. This was the reason for Noah's hesitation. This reason caused Pest's heart to heat up slightly. She could not help but tear up. Seeing this scene, Noah was nearly scared out of his wits. What's wrong with you?" "No, nothing." Only now did Pest react. She hurriedly wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and turned her head away. I only thought that you only cared about Letitia and never cared about me." Hearing this, Noah scratched his cheek. He had an unspeakable expression on his face. "Isn't that because you've always kept everyone at arm's length and treated me with an extremely vile attitude? So there was actually such a reason?" Pest was finally able to let go of the knot in her heart. Thus, Pest stepped forward and arrived before Noah. After hesitating for a moment, she extended her 2 small hands and wrapped one of Noah's hands in her palms. Noah blinked his eyes and looked at Pest with a puzzled expression. Under Noah's gaze, although Pest was somewhat bashful, she did not release her grip. While holding onto Noah's hand tightly, she raised her head and looked at Noah with her bright eyes. "I am merely a demon king with a 5-digit number of gods. To me, regardless of whether I become enemies with a portion of the gods or all of them, it doesn't make much of a difference. In any case, they are all fatal threats." These words allowed Noah to somewhat understand Pest's intentions. "Have you thought it through?" Noah met Pest's gaze. "But there's no turning back, right? In any case, I am already your subordinate. Even if I don't become your subordinate directly, I will definitely be viewed as an enemy by the higher-ups. It doesn't matter at all." Pest did not avoid Noah's gaze. A peculiar expression flickered in her eyes. "Thus, as long as you do not forget that we share a common destiny, even if it is hell, I will still follow you." After saying those words, Pest exerted a bit of force with her hand and pulled Noah down. Then, before Noah could react, Pest suddenly moved forward and gently kissed Noah's lips. Noah opened his eyes wide and looked at Pest with an extremely stunned expression. Pest released Noah's hand and took a few steps back. She raised her voice in a somewhat embarrassed manner and said, "Letitia also did this when she swore her loyalty to you, right? Your subordinate isn't just Letitia. You are also my master." After saying those words, Pest turned around and ran away. She ran out of Noah's room. Noah did not know whether to laugh or cry. Why are all the little girls by my side so mature? Chapter 1568. Perhaps it was because their relationship in the past was simply too unsteady, but now that they had suddenly opened their hearts to each other, Pest was not used to it. She did not even bother to discuss with Noah about how to prevent the Black Death from breaking out and directly ran away. From Pest's point of view, Noah, who possessed sovereignty over 16 sons, was already capable of helping her fulfill her wish at any time. Since that was the case, there was no need for her to be anxious. After all, Noah was no idle person. He had to deal with all the gods from the box and think of a way to deal with Az-Dakaha, who would break out of his seal in the near future. He was already vexed enough. Thus, how could Pest have the nerve to ask Noah to immediately help her fulfill her wish? In any case, with Noah's sovereignty over the sons, he could eliminate the Black Death with ease at any time. As such, it would not be too late for her to temporarily suppress this matter and wait for Noah to deal with Az-Dakaha before helping her fulfill her wish. That was what Pest was thinking. Noah faintly sensed Pest's thoughts. He could not help but smile. Even though her usual attitude is so vile, as expected, there is a gentle side to that girl's heart. Right after Noah said that, a voice filled with interest sounded in his mind. "The young girl who died from the plague, the death god who bears 80 million dead souls, the demon king who spreads the plague to bring about the grace of death?" The sudden voice caused Noah to react. He smiled. "What's wrong? The dark goddess who once controlled the underworld is interested in my family's maid?" A little, Athena did not mind Noah's teasing tone and said, "In the past, I was also a goddess who was responsible for bringing death to all living beings. Even though that girl spread the plague to achieve the same goal, as a god, she was also able to directly bestow death to all living beings. She is quite similar to me in many aspects." As she said that, the interest in Athena's voice slowly faded away. Unfortunately, that girl did not have a high understanding of death. In the end, she only used some hurried methods to become the death god. That's why her strength was not satisfactory, right? Hearing Athena's words, Noah's heart was moved. Indeed, Pest was not a proper god. Originally, if one wanted to become a god, other than possessing a suitable spirit, one must also possess a certain amount of faith. Due to Pest's 80 million dead souls, her spirit was unbelievably high compared to ordinary people. She was definitely qualified to become a god. However, Pest did not gather enough faith to become a god. That was why Noah requested White Yiksha to refine the magic book of Hamel's Piper into a ring and wear it on his body. He wanted Pest, who had formed a subordinate contract with him, to become the Grim Reaper in the Hamel's Piper inheritance and become a deity. Although it's a god's business, it's of time. However, in Athena's opinion, a god like Pest was undoubtedly a dabbler. You don't have a high understanding of death? Noah started pondering. After a long while, he suddenly said. Then, Athena, if you were to train Pest, to what extent would you be able to raise her strength? Hearing those words, Athena appeared to be stunned. However, she soon saw through Noah's intention and smiled sweetly. Do you want me to help you train that girl? In the past, you were the dark goddess who controlled hell and possessed the power of death. You were also a wise war goddess who nurtured many outstanding warriors. Noah did not conceal anything and directly said. Since Pest's compatibility with you is pretty good, if you were to train her, you should be able to increase her understanding of the death god's power and increase her strength, right? Of course, Athena said with great confidence. If I were to train that girl, it wouldn't be long before she would be able to advance to the so-called 4-digit level of this world, right? 4-digit level? Noah was somewhat surprised. Can she reach that level? Originally, that girl was only pushed to the position of the death god. She did not have any comprehension of the death god's power. The way she used her power was simply too immature, said Athena. Under such circumstances, that girl was still able to become the so-called top 5-digit figure. Then, if I were to train her, it wouldn't be strange for her to obtain the power that truly matches the Grim Reaper and advance to the 4-digit figure, right? That's truly great, Noah smiled lightly. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to train Pest. Very well. I am also slightly interested in that girl's growth. Athena's mood seemed to have become quite good. Never would I have expected that I, who had lost my status as a goddess, would have the opportunity to resume my old profession. Allow me to train that girl into a qualified god. Only then did Noah smile in satisfaction. At this moment, Athena uttered a shocking sentence. Also, I didn't come looking for you because that girl has a good compatibility with me. Instead, it's because I've confirmed the method to strengthen the sun's sovereignty. The sudden surprise stunned Noah. When he came to his senses, Noah was overjoyed. So soon. If we were to search for the other strengthening methods one by one, it would naturally take more time, Athena said to Noah. However, I've already decided what kind of strengthening these sun's sovereignty should be used for from the very beginning. Now, all that's left is to develop the strengthening method. You've already decided what kind of strengthening it should be used from the very beginning? Noah couldn't help but be stunned. The sun's sovereignty you've obtained has its own inheritance. It will allow you to obtain the corresponding ability, Athena explained. However, I think that instead of using these sun's sovereigns to obtain some abilities that might not be useful to you, it's better to use them to explore your strengths. Haven't you realized what's the most powerful part of your body? Athena suddenly spoke as if she had woken up from a dream. The most powerful part of your body isn't the authority from God, nor is it the grace called ability value from the goddess. It's your possibilities. Noah suddenly trembled as if he had been struck by an electric current. Under such circumstances, Athena continued to speak. In your memory, the virgin goddess from another world has already told you that the possibilities in your body are very terrifying. It's almost to the point where it's impossible to predict. Even if she grants you the grace of God and allows you to obtain ability value, you still need a lot of conditions to level up. Other adventurers only needed to raise one of their ability values to the D stage to meet the conditions for leveling up. Then, they would complete a great deed and be able to level up. However, Noah needed to raise all of his ability values to the SSS stage of 2000 proficiency points to meet the conditions for leveling up. That was because Noah's possibilities were too great, so the foundation he needed to establish was many times higher than others. I've been observing you all this time. I've even peeked into your life from your past memories. As a lucky person who has been blessed by many worlds, I have to say that you are indeed quite special. Your existence is more mysterious than the so-called gods, Athena said in a solemn tone. You are so special. The possibilities contained in your body are extremely terrifying even to me. Up until now, I have learned of all kinds of heroes and heroic spirits from all kinds of myths. There is no lack of existences that even the gods fear, but you are above them. Therefore, I think that the terrifying possibilities in your body are your greatest treasure. Athena's words poked at Noah's truth. Therefore, from the very beginning, the use of the sun's sovereignty that I thought of was not to strengthen your ability. Noah Dole, I want to use the sun's sovereignty to explore the huge possibilities in your body and make you an invincible existence. Chapter 1569. Become an undefeatable existence? At this moment, even Noah almost stopped breathing because of Athena's arrogant words. If it were someone else who said this, Noah would definitely not believe it. However, Athena was the goddess of wisdom. If she wasn't confident in something, she definitely wouldn't say such words so easily. In other words, Athena was confident that she could make Noah truly an undefeatable existence. No. To be more precise, she was confident that after discovering all the possibilities in Noah's body, she could make Noah an undefeatable existence. Only someone who clearly noticed how great the possibilities in Noah's body were would be able to say such words. And indeed, Noah possessed astonishing talents from a young age. Up until now, he had been growing and had never slowed down for even a moment. That was enough to prove that Noah was actually a person with almost infinite possibilities. If the huge possibilities in Noah's body could be discovered, by then, these possibilities would all become the nourishment for his ability value. Noah didn't know what kind of improvement his ability value would have at that time, and to what extent he could strengthen himself. However, at least, by then, Noah should be able to rely on his extraordinary ability value and the unlimited spiritual power provided by the third perpetual motion machine to successfully reach the realm of using all 10 avatars at the same time. When Noah used 2 avatars at the same time, he could already reach 3 digits. When Noah used 3 avatars at the same time, he would be at the peak of 3 digits, becoming someone who even the King of Gods and King of Gods could not compare to. It was not strange at all. And if Noah paid a price and forcibly used 4 avatars, he could definitely reach 2 digits and be on par with existences like White Yiksha and Halloween Queen. In this way, if Noah could use 10 avatars at the same time, coupled with the increase in his ability value, he could become an undefeatable existence. Could he not do it? Of course, whether he could do it or not, Noah did not know. Noah only knew that if he really reached that point, no matter what, in the worlds he had been to, he would definitely not be able to find an opponent. Including this box. Therefore, Noah could not help but speak. Can the possibilities in my body really be discovered by relying on the sun's sovereignty? If you must say it can or can't, the answer is naturally yes. Athena's voice did not have the slightest hesitation. The sun's sovereignty is a very special existence and has a wide range of uses. Many individuals who occupy special positions in this world use the sun's sovereignty to complete their spirit and achieve great things. That is a process of discovering possibilities. For example, if Galji could gather 10 sun's sovereignty and complete the spirit, he could become an individual who was more than a 2-digit existence like Shakyamuni. It was because Galji was the 10th incarnation of Vishnu, the hero who saved the world in the apocalypse. His body contained the possibility of becoming a supreme existence. That was why he could use the sovereignty of the sun to complete the spirit and achieve himself. Otherwise, there wouldn't be only a few people who could use the sun's sovereign to complete the spirit lattice. Now, Noah was only using the sun's sovereignty to do the same thing as Galji. Now, follow my method and use the sun's sovereignty to explore the possibilities in your body. In this way, your ability value will be able to draw out your possibilities and turn them all into your strength. After that, Athena began to explain the method of using the sun's sovereignty to explore possibilities. Listening to the voice directly in his heart, Noah almost subconsciously closed his eyes and immersed his mind in the depths of his heart. He came to the center of the universe sea. The stone plate with 10 patterns on its outline was still suspended in the universe sea. In the center of the stone plate, in the imprint of the sun, engravings that represented the sun's sovereignty were neatly arranged. Under Athena's guidance, Noah integrated his mind into the sun and connected with the engravings that represented the sun's sovereignty. Clang! The next moment, the engravings began to flash with dazzling light one after another, illuminating the entire universe sea. The light was just like the sun. It was dazzling and dazzling. It was warm and warm. The dazzling brilliance like the sun shone in the entire universe sea, and under the guidance of Noah's mind, it gushed out of the universe sea. The dazzling brilliance that gushed out of the universe sea suddenly shone in Noah's body and shone on every corner of Noah's body. Wherever the dazzling brilliance from the universe sea passed, the endless energy flowing in Noah's body seemed to be boiling and surging like a river. At the same time, Noah clearly felt it. In the depths of his body, something that could not be sensed before was gradually reacting. That reaction seemed to attract the dazzling brilliance shining in every corner of Noah's body, and all of it gathered there. As the dazzling brilliance gathered, the reaction became more and more intense. Sensing this reaction, Noah was overjoyed. That reaction was definitely the possibility contained in Noah's body. Next, he only needed to use the power of sun's sovereignty to draw out those possibilities, and then it would be a success. Therefore, Noah began to concentrate all his mind on his body, allowing the power of sun's sovereignty to gather at the place where the reaction occurred. In Noah's room, the atmosphere of silence spread little by little. Noah sat cross-legged on the bed in the room. His eyes were closed, and his body was motionless. He maintained this state and allowed time to pass. After an unknown amount of time, Noah slowly opened his eyes. The look in his eyes was that of indescribable helplessness. For a moment, the silent atmosphere in the air began to become heavy. After a while, Athena's voice sounded in Noah's mind. It seems that the attempt to use sun's sovereignty to explore the possibilities in your body failed. Yes. It failed. Noah had not been able to use sun's sovereignty to explore the possibilities in his body. This was because even though Noah had gathered all of his sun's sovereignty's power at the corner of the possibilities in Noah's body were only restless and did not show any signs of being drawn out. The possibilities in my body have already reacted, proving that your method is correct, Noah frowned. However, those possibilities have not been drawn out. Why is that? It's very simple, Athena said calmly. Since it can be drawn out but cannot succeed, it is undoubtedly because the power used to draw it out is too weak. Weak? Noah hesitated for a moment before speaking with uncertainty. You mean that the power of sun's sovereignty is not enough? To be precise, it should be that the power of 16 sun sovereigns is not enough to uncover your potential. Athena sighed, which was rare of her. It seems that the possibilities in your body are more terrifying than I thought. No matter how terrifying it is, if it cannot be used, it will be useless, Noah said helplessly. Then what should I do? Do you need me to teach you the method? Athena said bluntly. Since the power used to draw it out is not enough, then increase the power used to draw it out. Athena's words did not surprise Noah. This was because Noah had already thought of the method. Aren't there still 8 sun sovereignty left? Athena directly stated the most basic solution. Go and collect them. In other words, in order to explore the huge possibilities in Noah's body, Noah had to gather all 24 sun sovereignties. Gather all the sun sovereignties? Noah thought of something and the corners of his mouth slowly lifted. It seems that the gods that I have sealed will come in handy. Are you planning to play a game with the gods? Athena seemed to have thought of the same method and said with some joy. What a man who is unwilling to be lonely, but he won't be boring. Chapter 1570. Like a typhoon, the troubles of the gods and Buddhas in the sky started and ended in a hurry. After Noah dispelled them, nothing special happened on that day. Of course, Noah had sealed 1,000,000 gods in front of everyone. It was impossible to stop the news from spreading even if one wanted to. Therefore, the people who had witnessed that scene felt as if they had had a strange dream. They had been talking about it enthusiastically, making the entire vampire's castle extremely lively. It was estimated that the news of Noah sealing 1,000,000 gods had spread to the entire box court, let alone the vampire's castle. Therefore, everyone who knew about this matter was making guesses. How would the gods in the upper echelons of the box court deal with this matter? How would Noah, who had sealed 1,000,000 gods and caused them to suffer fatal blows, deal with this matter? For a moment, everyone was concerned about this kind of thing. It was also because of this that White Yiksha had transferred more than half of the sun's sovereignty to Noah, allowing Noah to have sovereignty over a total of 16 suns. This included the embarrassing matter of the many gods in the upper echelons openly joining forces to attack Noah in order to obtain sovereignty over the sun. They had brazenly tried to snatch it away, but in the end, all of them had been sealed. This was also spread out. In the box court, there were actually many communities that were attached to the gods in the heaven realm. Those communities, because of the orders of the gods in the heaven realm, did not go to the vampire's castle to fight against Az-Dakaha together. Originally, this matter had made the ordinary residents of the box court extremely dissatisfied. After all, everyone was responsible for the rise and fall of the world. Az-Dakaha's existence was a matter of life and death for the entire Hakata. Those communities that did not have the strength to participate in the war were fine. Those communities that were attached to the gods in the heaven realm definitely had the strength to participate in the war, but they did not. How could it not make people sad? This time, the gods had openly snatched the sovereignty of a human son, making the situation of those communities that were attached to the gods even more embarrassing. As a result, whether it was the many groups of gods in heaven or those communities that were attached to the groups of gods, all of them were pushed to the cusp of the storm of rumors and slanders. Their reputations were in jeopardy. However, compared to their reputation, the gods of the heaven realm were more concerned about the gods that had been sealed by Noah. If he could not get Noah to release the millions of sealed gods, the consequences would be unimaginable. Therefore, the gods of the heavenly realm must have made a ruckus because of this matter. However, the people in the lower bound had no way of knowing how big the uproar in the heavenly realm was. They were still spreading the news by word of mouth, which made the name Noah Dole even more legendary. It also made the reputation of those gods even worse. As for what was happening outside, Noah didn't know either. Today, after waking up early in the morning, Noah headed to No Name's headquarters in the minister's hall to prepare for breakfast. Because there weren't many members in No Name, they usually gathered together to eat. Although Letitia claimed that as a maid, she wanted to serve her master Noah as much as possible, Noah had no reason to eat alone just because he was being served, so he rejected Letitia's proposal. In view of this, now, in the morning, Letitia no longer went to Noah's room to serve him. Of course, this was only limited to the situation where Noah didn't oversleep. If Letitia arrived at the hall and didn't see Noah, then she would probably go to Noah's room to wake him up as a maid and help Noah dress and wash up. In fact, Noah really wanted to complain. Undoubtedly, Letitia was only his subordinate. Why did she always claim to be a maid? At first, it was because of White Yiksha's fooling around that Letitia wore a maid uniform to express her gratitude to Noah. Now, Letitia was playing more and more enthusiastically. She had long regarded herself as Noah's personal maid and claimed to be so, which made Noah a little speechless. However, in general, Letitia was happy and Noah didn't lose anything. Every day, he could have a cute little maid serving by his side. That was quite a pleasing thing, so Noah didn't correct her. Maybe, sometimes I can deliberately sleep in and enjoy the feeling of being woken up by a golden-haired lowly maid. That's not bad. With this thought, Noah smiled and walked into the hall. In the hall, other than Noah, the rest of the members of No Name were all present. Black Rabbit, whose ears were more sensitive, was the first to notice Noah's arrival. A pair of rabbit ears stood up very flexibly. "Mr. Noah, good morning." "Good morning," Noah smiled at Black Rabbit. The others also noticed Noah's arrival. They all turned to look at Noah. "Good morning." Good morning, everyone, Noah greeted them. Good morning, Master, Letitia nodded at Noah. Beside them, Pest also spoke in a very natural manner. Good morning, Master. However, Pest's words caused the atmosphere in the entire hall to become sluggish. Everyone present turned their astonished gazes to Pest. Their appearance was simply as if they had encountered something inconceivable. Being stared at by so many people with inconceivable gazes, Pest involuntarily took a step back and spoke in a very puzzled manner. What sort of expression is that? The people present ignored Pest's puzzlement. Instead, they looked at each other in dismay. Their eyes were still filled with disbelief. After a while, Fei Niao looked to Yao and asked as if seeking confirmation of something. Pest addressed Noah as Master. She even took the initiative to greet him? That's right, Yao also had an expression of disbelief. That Pest actually addressed Noah as Master. She even took the initiative to greet him. Ren hesitated for a moment before speaking in a weak voice. That can't be, right? Could it be that we've made a mistake somewhere? That's right, Black Rabbit secretly sized up Pest. Miss Pest, you couldn't possibly have eaten something bad, right? You all. Pest clenched her little fists tightly. Character had appeared on her forehead. Exactly how rude of a person am I in your eyes? That's right, Letitia admonished in a methodical manner. What you all are saying is a bit too rude. Pest crossed her arms before her and nodded repeatedly. However, in the next second, what Letitia said caused Pest to nearly fall down. Pest has only finally come to realize her duty as a maid. Her awakening of her heart to serve others is something that we should acknowledge. Who would wake up from such a messy state of mind? Pest shouted loudly. I merely acknowledged my master. What's so strange about that? Hearing those words, Fei Niao, Yao, Letitia, Ren and Black Rabbit spoke in unison. It's very strange, right? It's very strange. It's very strange. It's very, very strange, isn't it? Yes. It's very strange. I understand now. You all want me to determine the cause of your deaths, right? Pest lowered her head. Her delicate body started to shiver. A burst of black wind started to swirl around her body. Powerful anger filled the air. Since that's the case, it's decided then. Your cause of death is death from illness. Seeing that Pest was about to flip out, the people present finally realized that the joke had gone too far. Immediately, they cried out in alarm and hid behind Letitia. Unfortunately, it was simply impossible for a little maid who appeared to be only 11 or 12 years old to block so many people. It was as if the group of people were putting on a monkey show. Such a joyous and harmonious scene caused Noah to feel very helpless. However, he was unable to prevent the corners of his mouth from slowly curling up. Enough, all of you, stop messing around, Noah shook his head with a smile on his face. Then, he looked to Pest. Pest, you too. I still have to introduce an instructor to you later. Instructor? Pest was startled. Instructor? The others were also startled. That's right, Noah nodded and said. She boasted that she would help you reach a 4-digit rank. You have to work hard. Chapter 1571. 4 digits. Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia, Ren, and the others all opened their eyes wide. Me? 4 digits. Pest, on the other hand, had a blank expression on her face as if she couldn't connect the two factors together. Noah didn't say anything and directly said, All right, come out and meet everyone. As soon as his voice fell. Clang. Behind Noah, a platinum light suddenly shone. Wang. As if unwilling to be outdone, a silver light also blossomed from behind Noah. Within the dazzling platinum light and silver light, 2 petite figures slowly appeared. They absorbed all the light around them into their bodies, as if they were planning to use the light to form their bodies. Bit by bit, they appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The group of people were suddenly blinded by the dazzling light that suddenly shone, causing them to slightly close their eyes. When everyone opened their eyes again, two petite girls with silvery hair that was as soft as moonlight had already appeared on Noah's left and right. However, although the two petite girls also had silvery hair that was as soft as moonlight, one of them only had shoulder-length hair, while the other had waist-length hair. Aster? Noah was somewhat stunned as he looked at the girl with silvery hair that was as long as her waist. Why did you also come out? Aster didn't say anything. Instead, she tightly stared at Noah, causing Noah's expression to become somewhat unnatural. Immediately after, Aster once again turned her head around. She didn't say anything and had an extremely cold appearance. Noah, who was familiar with Aster, knew. This elven girl was definitely throwing a tantrum again because of some inexplicable matter. For example, only allowing Athena to come out, but not allowing her to appear. Everyone present knew who Aster was. Although they didn't know what kind of existence Aster was, Aster had once acted in No Name. She even had a very good relationship with a group of girls and had taken a bath together. Therefore, the members of No Name all knew that Aster was also Noah's subordinate. It was just that Aster's presence was usually too weak. It was easy for people to overlook the existence of this elven girl, so no one really interacted with Aster. However, at the very least, both parties had met before and were acquainted with each other. However, no one could recognize Athena. Ren seemed to feel that as the leader, he should take the lead and ask Athena tentatively. You are. Hearing this, Athena turned her head and looked at Ren. Her pair of seductive snake eyes flickered as if she was staring at her prey, causing Ren's heart to almost stop beating. Under such circumstances, Athena spoke softly. Although this concubine's name isn't something that needs to be hidden, there's no benefit in saying it. You can just call this concubine Pallas. Pallas is another name for Athena. This title had the meaning of the Maiden of Athens. In Homer's epic, Pallas was often used to refer to Athena. Therefore, many people believe that Pallas was the original name of the goddess of wisdom, Athena. In the later development of history, as the Athenians worshipped this goddess gradually became known as Athena. Because of this, Athena was also known as Pallas Athena, meaning the Palace of Athens. The Pyrrhachians also believed that Athena was born from Zeus and was raised by the river god Triton. Pallas was Triton's daughter, Athena's playmate, who was unfortunately accidentally killed by Athena. The Pyrrhachians believed that this myth was the origin of Athena and linked it to the young goddess worshipped in Libya, which was Pallas, making Pallas another name for Athena. From this point of view, there was nothing wrong with Athena reporting her name. As for why Athena reported such a name, Noah also somewhat understood. After all, in the box, there was also a goddess named Athena. If Athena were to report her name here, it would definitely involve the issue of her birth. In order to avoid this, Athena did not report her real name and instead reported her other name. This was because Pallas had the meaning of the young girl of Athens. Many young girls who had a deep relationship with Athens would be given this name by their parents. It was like a more general name, so it wouldn't arouse too much suspicion. In fact, other than Ren, who seemed to be somewhat puzzled, the others did not show much surprise when they heard the name Pallas. Pest looked at Athena as if she was sizing her up. She spoke to Noah with uncertainty in her voice. She is the instructor you spoke of? That's right, Noah nodded his head in understanding. Is there a problem? If you must say something, you definitely have it, right? Pest looked at Athena with a skeptical expression. Can you really help me reach 4 digits? It was not that Pest wanted to doubt Athena. Rather, this was not an easy task to begin with. As a deity, Pest was an existence that stood at the apex among the 5-digit deities. She was only a step away from reaching the 4-digit deity's level. However, this single step was as far as the eye could see. While it might seem like there was only a difference of 1 level between 4 digits and 5 digits, the former was classified as the upper level of the box. Even the majority of the Asura gods and Buddhas were at this level. As for the latter, they were classified as the middle level of the box. In the vampire's castle, there were many communities with 5 digits. For example, the community of Sarah and Shadora, who were the rulers of those levels, had 5 digits. However, in the vampire's castle, apart from Letitia and the Queen's Knight, only 16th Knights had the ability to reach 4 digits. And now, Noah was saying that as long as this young girl, who was not much older than Pest, gave some guidance, Pest would be able to reach 4 digits. Was this convincing? Faced with Pest's suspicion, Athena merely glanced at her. Right at this moment, Pest felt as if all of her body's temperature had been snatched away. Her blood was gradually cooling down. Even her life was slowly slipping away. That sort of sensation caused Pest to feel as if she had fallen into an icehouse. Instinctively, Pest waved her hand. Immediately, a burst of black wind appeared around her. Like a berserk pitch-black air current, the black wind swept toward Athena. The surrounding people immediately cried out in alarm. Hearing the cries of alarm, Pest finally reacted. Her expression changed. However, right at the moment when Pest planned to pull back her hand, the scene that occurred before her caused her expression to freeze. Facing the wind of death that could instantly take away a person's life, Athena looked at it as if she was looking at a toy. She gently extended her hand towards the black wind that was sweeping towards her. Chi! Upon coming into contact with Athena's hand, the black wind immediately emitted a strange sound as if it was a flame that had encountered water. Immediately after, the black wind started to swirl around Athena's hand. It turned into a clump of black gaseous substance that gently landed on Athena's palm. Seeing this scene, the crowd were all stunned. You! Pest was even more shocked. Athena lowered her eyes and looked at the clump of black gaseous substance in her hand. With a somewhat disinterested expression, she spoke. In the past, this humble one was also an existence that brought about the end of life. However, I have now lost the authority to wield death. Yet, I am able to rely on my understanding of death to seize the authority to control the power of death from you. It would appear that your understanding of the power of death is even weaker than this humble one had imagined. Pest was immediately speechless. There is no need for you to feel ashamed, Athena looked to Pest. With a casual wave of her hand, she dispersed the clump of black gaseous substance in her hand. Although you are still very immature, immaturity also means that you have ample room for growth and improvement. As long as you accept this humble one's training, it will not be difficult for you to reach the 4-digit level. Hearing those words, Pest's eyes started to shine. Pest immediately turned around and looked at Noah. Evidently, Pest already believed in Athena's ability. Well, that's how it is, Noah spread open his hands and said to Pest. Thus, Pest, from now on, you will learn from ya, from Pallas. Pest took a deep breath and nodded her head heavily. Chapter 1572. Fei Si lowered her head and remained silent. There was a person standing at the other end of the corridor. Fei Si was naturally aware of the situation and immediately spoke without leaving a trace. Why do you look like you wanted to eat a high-class steak but realized you don't have enough money and can only eat at a roadside stall? As for Aster, perhaps he was unconvinced that Athena had taken control of No Name the moment she appeared, but his presence was still so weak, so he also followed her. Noah turned around and looked at the source of the voice. Seeing that Noah and Fei Si had fallen into a state of speechlessness, the person said with a strange tone. This sentence caused Noah's eyes to flicker. However, Az Dakaha will break out of his seal sooner or later. When that time comes, who knows how many people will lose their precious lives here. The two rulers of the North and South believe that under such circumstances, they must not be pushed too hard. Therefore, it is a good thing to have some topics that can divert their attention. When the other party reported his name to Noah, he spoke in Japanese. If possible, I really hope they can do something serious. Therefore, the man in front of him, who Noah thought was a piece of trash, was undoubtedly a human. Noah was quite interested in Will-O-Wisp, taking in the souls of innocent children who died. It's just that I don't know if we'll be able to have a peaceful conversation after we meet. On the busy street, Fei Si led Noah and walked slowly in a certain direction. Thus, right after they finished eating breakfast, Athena immediately brought Pest out of No Name's base of operations in the throne hall to search for a suitable location outside. However, at that moment, there was not a single person sitting on the seats that were placed under the sunlight. In other words, if Imperial Gate was translated as Emperor, the person's true identity would be revealed. Seeing that person, Noah raised his eyebrows slightly. Perhaps it was because it had been a long time since she was able to train excellent warriors as a mentor like in the mythological era. Athena seemed to be very motivated. It couldn't be helped. Noah couldn't sense a trace of the aura of a deity from the other party's body. At least, Noah, who was prepared to have a high-level negotiation with the newcomer, felt like he had punched a cotton ball with all his might, causing his chest to be choked with air. Among the upper echelons of the box court, there were very few gods who clearly expressed their opposition to creating a new box court and abandoning the old one. Name? The other party scratched his head and smiled indifferently. Oh. Noah was curious. Then, who are you? His casual words caused Fei Si to stop in her tracks. It's not a problem to meet him. Noah spread out his hands and reminded him meaningfully. There was a need to mention it here. Hearing this, Fei Si said with absolute certainty. The man, who didn't know that he had given Noah the impression of a useless person, said something extremely depressing. It's very simple. Fei Si said. Today, we will book this place. Fei Si said to Noah. Just like before. Noah paused for a moment at Fei Si's words, but he quickly regained his composure. Because, among the upper echelons of the box court, there is no one who cares more about the survival of mankind than him. There is also no one who is closer to mankind than him. It was a voice that sounded very immature and frivolous at first glance. It was an open-air restaurant opened by the commercial community, 6 Wounds, which was still under the Dragonhorn Griffin Lion Alliance. It seems that everyone is still talking about Sir Noah's great feat of sealing millions of deities in one fell swoop. Yes. Fei Si was silent for a moment, then nodded. After saying that, Fei Si didn't say anything else. She silently led the way and brought Noah to a place. In Japanese, the word imperial had a way of reading it. It was the same as the word emperor. The moment she appeared, she said something that would cause others to look down on her. Moreover, it was very boring. What was going on here? Curious about this, Black Rabbit, Flying Bird, Yao, Letitia and even Ren followed after Athena. They seemed to want to see how exactly Athena was going to teach Pest. Your Excellency Noah, there's someone I hope you can meet. Since I've returned, I won't let that lizard kill anyone in front of me. Then, Noah spoke. Then, where is the person you want me to meet? Not to mention Noah, even Fei Si couldn't keep her composure. The surrounding passers-by all looked at Noah. Their eyes were filled with respect and admiration. This made Noah feel somewhat puzzled. My apologies, the person walked up to Noah and Fei Si and said with a smile. Since that was the case, wouldn't it be better to just bring him to the minister's hall? Why did they have to do it in a public place? From the looks of it, it was no longer at the level of being speechless. Rather, it was at the level of giving up on talking to him. Just as they walked out of No Name's base in the minister's hall, Noah discovered them. Oh. They're already here? Forget it, Noah looked around as if he had given up. He saw a man walking out from a building not far from the open-air restaurant. Although he did not know how to adopt the souls of dead children, as someone who had also adopted a bunch of children, Noah might be able to get some resonance from the practice of will-o-wisp. That might not be the case. The corner of Noah's mouth twitched slightly, but there was nothing he could do. He could only look at the person and say straightforwardly. Sakura. Sakura of Imperial Gate? You. Noah looked at the man who called himself Sakura of Imperial Gate in shock. At that very moment, Noah's heart had successfully formed the impression that the young man was a piece of trash. All of a sudden, Noah frowned. In Hindu mythology, the heavenly emperor, the ruler of the gods, the leader of the 12 heavens and the war gods, one of the founders of Hakata, and also the main god of the Black Rabbit. Please don't worry. Although this is my own idea, I believe that you will be able to negotiate with the other party. As of now, all of Azi Dakahar's doppelgangers have been destroyed. There is nothing else we can do. Fei Si didn't turn around and continued to lead the way, but her tone was very serious. Without any other choice, Noah could only walk out of the base and plan to walk around the streets, or just sit at Vera, Ai Xia, and Jack's place. For Sir Noah to say this, it is very convincing. I believe that you will be able to do it. After all, what we are going to talk about is not suitable for others to know. Why do you say that? With this thought in mind, Noah walked out of No Name's base. I've been waiting for a long time, so I just ordered some drinks. In the end, I realized that this restaurant didn't have a toilet, so I could only go nearby and borrow one. That kind of existence was now in front of Noah. Yeah. Noah shrugged. Then, a voice sounded. The upright Queen Knight seemed to have never known how to beat around the bush. She spoke directly to Noah as soon as she came up. After breakfast, Noah was the only one left in No Name's base. Can you please meet with him? In the next second, Fei Si said with admiration. Without waiting for Fei Si's reply, Noah sensed an aura that could not be ignored closing in on them. Also known as Indra. To be more precise, it should be a lobbyist sent by the gods. A person? Noah looked at Fei Si with a half-smile. You can call me Imperial Gate Shirtion. That is my current name. Fei Si had been looking in the direction of No Name's base. As soon as she saw Noah walk out, she immediately went up to him. It was a man who seemed to be in his 30s. He was wearing a shirt with a wide-open collar and a suit jacket on the outside in a deliberately non-mainstream manner. Before Noah had time to consider the meaning of the words, current name, he was shocked by the name that the other party reported. Chapter 1573. Sakra. Although there were many gods in Indian mythology, if one only talked about the degree of fame, then if one asked 1,000 people who knew Indian mythology, those 1,000 people would all say this name. Thunder god. Military god. Hero god. King of gods. This deity had many complicated attributes. However, in India's oldest sacred book, Rigveda, more than 30% of the content was praising him. Later on, Sakra converted to Buddhism, which made many people know that he was the guardian of Buddhism. However, if one were to look into his origin, Sakra's spirit was one of the strongest and oldest gods that could rival the main god of Greece and the only god of Western Europe. This god was a super god with such a noble status and power. Such an existence was definitely at the level of the king of gods, but he didn't have the aura of a god. Instead, he was like a good-for-nothing human. Wasn't that enough to surprise people? No, compared to being a good-for-nothing, the fact that he was a human was the reason why Noah was surprised. After all, in the inheritance of Indian mythology, Sakra was originally a useless god. He was addicted to alcohol and was fond of women. It was even said that he only did things that didn't need to be done. If he hadn't converted to Buddhism, he would have been despised to the point of being ashamed. Therefore, compared to the fact that he was a good-for-nothing, Noah was more surprised that he didn't feel the aura of a god from him. Logically speaking, with Sakra's divinity, in front of Noah's superb sensing ability, it should be impossible to hide the aura of a god. Even if he could hide the aura, there was no way to fake the unique aura of a human. But in front of Noah, this man who called himself Imperial Gate Shirtion was like an ordinary human. There was no sense of disharmony at all. This made Noah surprised for a while, and then his heart moved. Descending from heaven and becoming a human? The so-called descending from heaven and becoming a human referred to reincarnation as a human. In Indian mythology, such inheritance was not uncommon. For example, Vishnu descended from heaven and became a human in order to annihilate the demon king Ravana that the gods and demons couldn't harm. He reincarnated and became Prince Rama, widely known as the hero who annihilated the Demon King. This was the only possibility Noah could think of for Imperial Gate Shirtian's situation. And it turned out that Noah's guess was correct. As expected, I can't hide anything from you, someone who can even seal a sky full of gods and Buddhas. Immortal Gate Shirtian curled his lips into a smile. There's nothing I can do about it. In the heavenly realm, I belong to a faction that's closer to humans after all. If I don't descend from the heavens to become a human and lower my own spiritual level, those guys up there won't allow a Lord God level existence to wander around in the lower realm. In the end, it might even evolve into an enemy. Indeed, from what Noah could sense, Imperial Gate Shirtian's aura was too weak compared to the one in the inheritance. If human Shirtian was really that Sakra, then he should be at the top of the 3 digits. In terms of strength, he should be even stronger than Aziz Dakaha. Among the 3 figures, the only one who could firmly suppress Sakra was probably the Queen of Halloween. However, now, the aura of Imperial Gate Shirtian in front of Noah was a little too weak compared to that kind of existence. The current me is at most a 4-digit level. To you, that's an existence that can be dealt with one punch, Imperial Gate Shirtian said carelessly. So, there's no need for you to be on guard against me. Let's open up our hearts and have a good chat, how about it? Well, if you're really that celestial emperor, then there's no need to be on guard against you. Noah sighed, then suddenly smiled. If it's another god, I'll have to consider whether the other party descended from the heavens to become a human to deal with my another cosmology. Hearing this, no matter how careless Imperial Gate Shirtian was, he couldn't help but laugh bitterly. That's true. Compared to the current me, I, who was originally the strongest species, am even less likely to pose a threat to you. It's a little unnecessary. Okay, the 2 of you, please don't continue to stand here and talk. It's a little too eye-catching. Fei Si finally spoke. Let's go inside and talk. Noah and Imperial Gate Shirtian both nodded. Together with Fei Si, they walked into the open-air restaurant, chose a corner farthest from the street, and sat down. Presumably, you should already know the purpose of my visit, right? Imperial Gate Shirtian said straightforwardly. I'm here to ask you to release the group of gods that you've sealed. Noah's expression didn't change at all. He picked up the coffee that had just been served by the waiter, took a sip first, and then responded very naturally. The group of gods that you mentioned that I've sealed shouldn't be just the group of gods from Hindu mythology led by the famous celestial emperor, right? That's right. Imperial Gate Shirtian nodded. I hope you can release all the gods. What's the reason? Noah didn't raise his head and continued to drink his coffee. The gods of heaven came to find trouble with me, so I have a reason to seal them, but I don't seem to have a reason to release them, do I? That's why those guys who are at their wits' end can only beg me to negotiate with you. Imperial Gate Shirtian sighed and looked deeply at Noah. And if you need a reason, then if you don't release the group of gods, then countless worlds will welcome the collapse of mankind, and mankind will be completely wiped out. How about that reason? This sentence made Noah's hands suddenly stop moving. The atmosphere became heavy all of a sudden. As everyone knows, the gods exist because of the faith of mankind, and mankind relies on the grace of the gods to survive. So, whether the gods or mankind came first, this question of which came first, the chicken or the egg, has never been solved until now. Imperial Gate Shirtian looked directly at Noah. However, there is no doubt that the gods and mankind are existences that depend on each other. Whichever side perishes, the other side may disappear. And the gods sealed by His Excellency Noah are the foundation of almost every mythological system. Fei Si continued Imperial Gate Shirtian's words. If His Excellency Noah continues to seal them, it is very likely that it will cause the balance between the gods and mankind to be destroyed. At that time, mankind's faith will be overturned, and the existence of the gods will be wiped out. The entire history of the gods and mankind will completely collapse, and then the mankind of countless worlds will be destroyed, Imperial Gate Shirtian said. As a reason for you to release the group of gods, I wonder if this is enough? The whole place suddenly fell silent. Noah closed his eyes and continued to drink his coffee as he spoke calmly. In other words, you intend to use such consequences to threaten me? It's not a threat. Imperial Gate Shirtian hurriedly shook his head. Anyway, it's useless for you to keep sealing so many gods. At most, you're just venting your anger. Since you vented your anger, why don't we just end things peacefully? Isn't that good? End things peacefully? Noah opened his eyes and looked at Imperial Gate Shirtian with extreme sarcasm. Then let me ask you. If I release all the gods, can you guarantee that the arrogant gods that I've sealed will not resent me and continue to cause trouble for me, or even the people around me? I really can't guarantee that those fellows won't resent you. Imperial Gate Shirtian scratched his head in annoyance. However, if you believe me, I can make those fellows stop causing trouble for you and the people around you. I can also give you the same promise on behalf of the Queen. If any of the gods were to oppose you in the future, they would be punished by the Queen of Halloween, including the Celtic gods, Faye said at the right time. In addition, Your Excellency is trusted by the White Knight King and has even entrusted the sovereignty of the sun to you. With the deterrence of the White Knight King and the Queen of Halloween, I believe that no god group will be so brazen as to seek their own deaths. If they don't dare to do it brazenly, then wouldn't they dare to do it secretly? Noah pursed his lips. There's a saying that goes, it's easy to dodge a spear in the open, but difficult to guard against a stab in the dark. I don't want to regret my choice today in the future. Imperial Gate Shirtian and Faye immediately fell silent. After a while, Imperial Gate Shirtian spoke helplessly. Then, what will it take for you to release the sealed gods? What do you think? Noah's eyes flashed slightly, and he suddenly smiled. Since those fellows are causing trouble for me because of the sovereignty of the sun, then I'll learn from them. The next second, Noah made a declaration. If you want me to release the sealed gods, then use the remaining 8 sun sovereigns in exchange. Chapter 1574. Sun. Sun sovereignty? Whether it was Yumin Shirtian or Faye, they were both shocked. Obviously, the two did not expect Noah to propose such a condition. Faye even spoke with great emotion. You want to gather all the sun sovereignty? Why? Noah answered without changing his expression. Is there a problem? Yumin Shirtian and Faye looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. Was there a problem with gathering all the sun sovereignty? Of course, there would be no problem. However, that was something that no one had been able to do until now. In the past, in the gift game that decided the ownership of the sun sovereignty, White Yiksha won again and again, but in the end, he only obtained 14 sun sovereignty. And Halloween Queen, who was regarded as a strong opponent by White Yiksha, only obtained 6 sun sovereignty. As for the remaining 4 sun sovereignty, even White Yiksha and Halloween Queen did not fight for it. They could only let it flow out and be obtained by various existences and forces. Even White Yiksha and Halloween Queen, who stood at the pinnacle of the box court, could not do it. Now, Noah, a human, wanted to do it? It was believed that if anyone heard this, even if they knew that Noah had the ability to seal millions of god groups, they would still not know whether to laugh or cry, right? However, at this point, Yumin Shirtian and Faye were shocked to find out. Noah, it was really possible to do it. Out of a total of 24 sun sovereignty, 16 sun sovereignty is currently in my hands. Of the remaining 8 sun sovereignty, Halloween Queen has 6, and the other 2 are missing. Noah said as if talking to himself. However, there are more than tens of thousands of god groups in the heaven realm. If no god group has the sun sovereignty, then they are really living as dogs. Yumin Shirtian and Faye were speechless. Looking at Yumin Shirtian and Faye like this, Noah spoke slowly. Since those gods and Buddhas are preparing to create a new box court and collect sun sovereigns, it's impossible that they haven't collected 2 sun sovereigns. In addition to the 6 sun sovereigns in the hands of Halloween Queen, the other 8 sun sovereigns that aren't in my hands are all on the god's side. After saying that, Noah looked at Yumin-Shir-Tian and Fei-Si with a burning gaze. In order to obtain the sovereignty of the sun from my hands, the gods did not hesitate to openly snatch it away. Now, I will return the favor. Just tell the higher-ups. Noah declared in an unquestionable tone. If you want me to release the sealed deities, then give me the remaining 8 sun sovereigns in exchange. Otherwise, forget it. His resolute and decisive words caused immortal Shir-Tian and Fei-Si to open their mouths slightly, but they were unable to utter a single word for a long time. The two of them had no idea at all. At this time yesterday, Noah actually didn't have any thoughts of returning an eye for an eye. However, things were different now. Noah needed to gather all of the sun sovereigns to draw out all of his possibilities and reach the peak. For Noah, the remaining 8 sun sovereigns were definitely things that he had to obtain. However, most of the remaining 8 sun sovereigns were in the hands of Halloween Queen, and the remaining 2 were nowhere to be found. Where was Noah supposed to find them? Fortunately, the gods of the heaven realm were courting their own deaths. They also delivered themselves to Noah for the sake of the sun sovereigns. They were sealed by Noah, giving Noah the opportunity to obtain all of the remaining sun sovereigns in a short period of time. As a result, those gods who had designs on Noah could only go for wool and come home shorn. Yumin-Shir-Tian and Fei-Si also understood this point. At that moment, a bitter smile appeared on Fei-Si's face. Is there no room for further discussion? There is no room for further discussion. Noah said without any hesitation. Other than this condition, I won't accept any other conditions. Is this okay? Yumin-Shir-Tian's expression was also somewhat bitter. No matter what, the history of the gods and the history of mankind are dependent on each other. If you do this and the gods don't agree, it won't be a good thing when the time comes and the fish dies and the net splits. Don't talk to me about things like righteousness and benevolence. Those gods are just greedy for life and afraid of death. Noah was more or less disdainful. Aziz Dakaha alone forced those guys to abandon the box and ignore the lives of the humans in the lower realm. If that's the case, why should I care about the lives of the gods? Moreover, I believe in the possibility of humans. Noah looked directly at Yumin-Shir-Tian. Even without faith, without the grace of the gods, humans can still survive and won't perish. No matter what kind of desperate situation you're in, you can still find a chance to survive. That's what humans are like. Noah couldn't help but smile. Isn't it because he was attracted by the possibility of humans that the famous celestial emperor became the most loyal supporter of humans? The bitter expression on Yumin-Shir-Tian's face became more intense bit by bit. Let's just mention it here. The existence known as Indra was once the evil god of the Zoroastrianism during the era known as Indra's era. Both Hindu mythology and Persian mythology were deeply related to the Vedic mythology. Many of the gods in Indian and Persian myths were, in fact, evolved from Vedic myths. Indra was one of them. Aziz Dakaha was also one of them. These two gods originated from the Vedic mythology and were gradually divided into the Buddhist mythology of Hindu mythology and the Zoroastrianism of Persian mythology. They were once evil gods of the same origin. The difference was that Indra was taken in by the Buddhist sect and gradually evolved into the present Indra. He became the king of gods in Hindu mythology and the evil god's divinity was abandoned. Aziz Dakaha, on the other hand, had always carried out his belief as an evil god and had survived, even becoming the final trial for the humans. It was said before that Velaslana was equivalent to Indra. That was because Indra was taken in by the Buddhist sect in Hindu mythology. Indra's divinity in the Zoroastrianism became a part of Mitra's divinity and was inherited by Velaslana, who split from Mitra's body. Perhaps it was because Indra had converted to Buddhism and abandoned the evil side of him, which was absorbed by Persian mythology. That was why Indra, who was supposed to be an evil god, and Mitra, who was supposed to be the god of contract, were connected together. After all, in the Persian mythology, Mitra also had a story of destroying evil and making people abandon evil and turn to good. He made a contract with him and showed the interdependence of good and evil. Thinking about it this way, Noah and Yumin also had an extraordinary relationship. At least, the power in Noah's body that belonged to Velaslana was of the same origin as Indra. It was said that the reason why Indra abandoned evil and turned to good had a lot to do with the life in the lower realm. That was why the high and mighty king of the gods stood on the side of the residents of Hakata from beginning to end, right? Then, this human who called himself Yumin was no doubt the one who understood the meaning of Noah's words the most. Under such circumstances, Yumin finally surrendered. I understand what you mean, I will bring it back to those guys above. I believe that the group of gods who hid the sovereignty of the two suns will not fight to the death with you for the sovereignty of the two suns. Even if the group of gods who hid the sovereignty of the two suns was not willing to take them out, the other groups of gods would not agree. After all, it was a matter of life and death for the other groups of gods. So, the other groups of gods should also put pressure on the group of gods who hid the sovereignty of the two suns, forcing them to take them out. But Yumin glanced at Fei Si. I can't guarantee the queen. Suddenly, Noah also looked at Fei Si. Under the gazes of the two men, Fei Si's expression was a little uncertain. Finally, she sighed. I will also tell Her Majesty what you mean. In order to save the entire Celtic group of gods, I believe that even the queen will compromise, right? In other words, the remaining 8 sons were already under Noah's name. Noah did not hide his laughter and said so. Then I will give the 2 of you one day. At this time tomorrow, I hope you can give me a satisfactory answer. What else could Yumin and Fei Si do? The 2 of them could only nod helplessly. Seeing this, the smile on Noah's face became brighter and brighter, and his heart began to become active. At this time tomorrow, perhaps Noah would be able to gather all 24 sons and draw out his own possibility. At this moment, Noah was only looking forward to it. Looking forward to the arrival of tomorrow. Chapter 1575. Under Noah's anticipation, the next day quickly arrived. The members of a No Name, who didn't know what Noah had done in a single day, were also in high spirits as they followed Athena and Pest outside for their special training. However, perhaps because they were bored, Aster didn't follow them this time. Instead, he obediently transformed into his elven device and accompanied Noah. Other than Aster, Ren also didn't follow them. After all, 16th Night was still unconscious and couldn't be left unattended. As the leader of the community, Ren seemed to have accepted the responsibility of taking care of 16th Night. Undoubtedly, there were so many cute girls in No Name, but they were reduced to being taken care of by Ren. If 16th Night woke up and found out about this, she would definitely be very unhappy, right? Noah, on the other hand, obediently stayed in No Name's base in the minister's hall until he felt that it was about time. Then, he walked out of the minister's hall and headed towards the outdoor cafe that he had been at yesterday. This time, it was still the same as before. Noah returned to the cafe under the gazes of respect and reverence of many people. He sat down at the same place as yesterday and ordered a cup of black coffee from the waiter. He sat there quietly and waited for the arrival of Imperial Shirtion and Fei Si. Imperial Shirtion and Fei Si didn't make Noah wait for too long. At around the same time as yesterday, Imperial Shirtion and Fei Si appeared in the outdoor cafe at the same time. As soon as they appeared, Fei Si politely lowered her head. Sorry to keep you waiting. Sorry. Imperial Shirtion casually waved his hand. Although I can use the realm gate and distance isn't a problem, it still takes a lot of time to convince those old fogies. Fortunately, I made it in time. There's nothing to apologize for. You're not late. Moreover, I've already prepared to wait here for you all day. Noah wasn't in a hurry. He first called the waiter over and ordered drinks for the 2. After the waiter left, he looked at Imperial Shirtion and Fei Si. Looking at you 2, you shouldn't be bringing me any bad news, right? Sort of. Yumin Shirtion seemed to feel a little tired. After sighing, he scratched his head. I don't know what kind of news the Queen Knight will bring, but I do have some good news. Is that so? Noah's eyes lit up as he smiled. In other words, it's done. Although those fellows showed that they would rather die than submit in the beginning, after all, no one is willing to joke about the future of the entire pantheon for the sovereignty of two sons. Yumin spread his hands, took out a gift card from his bosom, and pushed it in front of Noah. So, for the time being, I did not disappoint and obtained the two sun sovereigns collected by the gods. Looking at the gift card that was pushed in front of him by Yumin, Noah somewhat impatiently picked it up. Clang! In the next moment, the gift card in Noah's hand shone brightly. The light was like a fluid, and it didn't flow in all directions. Instead, it flowed toward Noah's hand and entered Noah's body. In the depths of Noah's heart, in the center of the stone plate that was connected to the outline of the 10 patterns, the sun imprint suddenly trembled. Inside, 2 brand new imprints appeared out of thin air, and together with the other imprints, they divided the space within the sun equally. With this, the number of sun sovereigns in Noah's hands increased by 2, reaching the level of 18. Only the 6 sun sovereigns in the hands of the Halloween Queen were left. Okay, my mission is finally completed. Yumin looked at Fei Si with a sigh of relief. So, what did the Queen say? Noah also turned his gaze to Fei Si, looking at her pretty face wearing a ball mask. Under the gaze of Noah and Yumin, Fei Si's expression was somewhat hesitant. Seeing this scene, Noah and Yumin frowned at the same time. What's wrong? Noah said faintly. Is the Queen not willing to hand over the sun sovereigns? I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Yumin was still frowning, but he seemed to be relieved. After all, using the sun sovereigns as the price to release the sealed gods. To put it nicely, it's called a deal, but to put it bluntly, it's a threat. That temperamental Queen certainly won't obediently hand over the sun sovereigns, right? Yumin analyzed in front of Noah and Fei Si, as if he had suddenly become an outsider, and no matter what happened next, it had nothing to do with him. And what Yumin said happened to be one of the answers that Noah had thought of since yesterday. Therefore, Noah didn't show any surprise, as if nothing had happened, and calmly nodded. Sure enough, it's not that easy. Although the Halloween Queen was the central figure of the Celtic gods, she was only one of the central figures. She couldn't make the entire Celtic gods obey her orders. Otherwise, the Celtic gods wouldn't have come to find trouble with Noah and suffer the consequences of their own actions. And in such a situation, why would the Halloween Queen have to pay for the stupid actions of the Celtic gods alone? Presumably, even if the Halloween Queen could pay for it, the other gods and the Celtic gods would have to pay a high price to persuade this figure who was an exceptional existence among the 3-digit gods, right? In other words, it was very likely that the negotiation would go wrong in the end, causing them to part on bad terms. Noah had long guessed that there was such a possibility, and he had discussed it with Athena to prepare countermeasures. Now, it was time to use that countermeasure. However, just as Noah was about to say something to Fei Si shook her head and said something that surprised Noah. No, the Queen has actually agreed to transfer the sun sovereigns to His Excellency Noah in order to let His Excellency Noah release the sealed gods. Agreed? Noah was slightly stunned. Agreed? Imperial Guard Shirtion was also stunned for a moment, and then said to Fei Si. Then why are you still hesitating? I'm hesitating because although the Queen agreed to transfer the sun sovereigns to His Excellency Noah, she has a request. Fei Si looked straight at Noah and said word by word. His Excellency Noah, the Queen wants me to tell you that if you want the sun sovereigns in her hands, she hopes to give it to you in person. What? Noah was surprised. Give it to me in person? Yes. Fei Si nodded heavily. So, please get ready, His Excellency Noah, and come with me to see the Queen. After that, Imperial Guard Shirtion left directly. According to him, his mission had been completed. If it was to accompany Noah, it would be fine, but there was no need to accompany such a dangerous person. That was natural. Although the Halloween Queen was one of the central figures of the Celtic gods, she was also a demon king. Once upon a time, White Yiksha was also a demon king. However, after converting to Buddhism and obtaining the divinity of Yiksha, White Yiksha gave up the title of demon king and became the ruler of the hierarchy. The Halloween Queen was also a demon king. Moreover, until now, she was still a demon king and had no intention of turning over a new leaf. Such an existence, coupled with Imperial Guard Shirtian's evaluation of her as temperamental, was needless to say how dangerous she was. If the Halloween Queen was so dangerous, Noah also did not want to deal with her. However, this time, Noah would not back down here. Noah was determined to get the Sun Sovereigns. Therefore, under Fei Si's lead, Noah and Imperial Guard Shirtian went their separate ways and walked out of the street. So, where should I go to see the Halloween Queen? Noah asked Fei Si beside him. Go with you to the three-digit stratum? No need for that, Fei Si answered directly. Let's go back to the minister's hall. Back to the minister's hall? Noah could not help but blink. Seeing Noah's puzzled expression, Fei Si explained. The queen is an existence that dominates the stars and the stars. She can connect any place to her location. Even the door of a parallel world can be easily opened. We just need to go back to the minister's hall to see the queen. Chapter 1576. Halloween Queen. Just like the name mentioned, it was an existence that had a lot to do with Halloween. Just like the White Knight King was the incarnation of White Knight, Halloween Queen was also the deification of Halloween. Therefore, this existence formed from the Hallowmas divinity was known as the Queen of Hallowmas. There were many rumors about this queen in the world. It was said that she was a typical problem child. If 16 Knights, Flying Bird, and Radiance were considered problem children, then Halloween Queen was definitely a problem child among problem children. At least, 16 Knights, Flying Bird, and Radiance's freedom were limited to only one person. Halloween Queen's pranks, on the other hand, could affect the entire box. Moreover, the most important problem was that Her Majesty's temperament was quite changeable. Sometimes, she could suddenly kill someone while she was smiling. Other times, she would inexplicably forgive the person who made her angry when she was extremely angry. There was even a time when the Halloween Queen did not hesitate to use the power of realm manipulation to teleport the entire environment of other places to a place she liked because the environment of one of the outer areas of the box court was quite bad. Because of this, she did not hesitate to make a move. She used the power of realm manipulation to teleport the entire environment of other places to create a place she liked at will, causing a huge commotion. Therefore, Halloween Queen was the Devil Queen, and Imperial Gate Shirtian disliked her so much. In any case, Halloween Queen was indeed very dangerous. Even Fei Si had to admit this fact. So, the Queen didn't say that I can go with you. If I go with Sir Noah to see the Queen, it is very likely that the Queen will be angry. In the main hall of the throne hall, Fei Si said to Noah who was beside her. Your Excellency Noah, please decide for yourself what to do next. Decide for myself? Noah was really helpless. In other words, as long as I walk around the throne hall, I can see Halloween Queen. If there must be an explanation, then it's more or less like that. Fei Si was also helpless and could only give Noah such a suggestion. In short, Sir Noah only needs to walk around the throne hall and avoid places with people. If you see any door that you normally don't, then go in and take a look. After saying that, Fei Si turned around and left the main hall of the minister's throne hall. Looking at Fei Si's receding figure, Noah wanted to call out to her several times, but in the end, he held himself back inside. I have no choice. I can only walk around casually. Noah didn't doubt that he could find the person he was looking for. After all, Fei Si had also said that the Halloween Queen, who could manipulate the star realm, could connect any place to her location. Her ability was quite impressive. Noah only knew two existences who could control realms. Vera could control the realm of life and death. Maxwell could manipulate the realms of cold and heat. However, the two of them were like children in front of the Queen of Halloween. Noah heard that the Halloween Queen could manipulate the realm of the world at will just by flipping through the pages of a book. With such a degree of power, it would not be strange for him to treat the entire world as his own backyard. Therefore, Noah took a step forward and strolled through the corridors of the entire throne hall. Along the way, many people who were also stationed in the throne hall bowed to Noah in fear and awe when they saw Noah. Noah only nodded slightly in return. After which, he deliberately avoided places where there were people and strolled along the empty corridor. This time, Noah walked at least 10 to 20 laps, which took him a whole hour. In the end, not to mention the door that usually didn't exist, even the door that usually existed, Noah tried to open it, but there wasn't even a ghost. Gradually, Noah began to feel impatient. Is the Halloween Queen playing with me? After a long time, Noah couldn't help but have such a thought. Imperial Guard Shirtion said that the Halloween Queen's temperament was quite erratic. Then, when Noah wanted to see the Halloween Queen, the Queen was likely to deliberately not let Noah find her. In other words, if it was the other way around, forget it. Noah stopped and said as if talking to himself. Since I can't find her, then I might as well not look for her. After speaking, Noah immediately turned his head and planned to leave. However, the moment Noah turned his head, the wall at the end of the corridor in front suddenly distorted. In the tremor of space, the wall at the end of the corridor squirmed like a rice cake and gradually turned into a door. Looking at the door, Noah secretly said in his heart. Sure enough, if I don't want to meet her, the moody queen will want to meet me instead. Noah more or less knows what kind of person the Halloween Queen is. With that thought in mind, Noah walked forward unhurriedly and arrived in front of the door that suddenly appeared. With his hand on the door, Noah gently used his strength and slowly opened the door. With the opening of the door, Noah's vision was gradually occupied by a burst of dazzling sunlight. Some of the strong sunlight made Noah's eyes squint slightly. After adapting to the sunlight, he could see the scene inside the door. What appeared in front of Noah was a courtyard illuminated by the bright sunlight. It was a courtyard with marble tiles on the ground. Around the courtyard, there were all kinds of flower beds. Above the courtyard, there was a thin layer of sky. In the center of the courtyard, there was a pavilion. In the pavilion, there was a round stone table. Noah lifted his foot and walked into the courtyard. When Noah walked into the courtyard, the door behind him suddenly trembled and gradually dissipated like a phantom. This scene made Noah frown slightly, but he didn't say anything and continued to walk inside the courtyard. However, Noah didn't finish this part of the road. In the next second, something that even Noah didn't expect happened. Clang! The ground of the entire courtyard suddenly flashed with a bright golden light. Noah's face changed, and without hesitation, he jumped up and flew into the air. In that instant, the entire ground that was shining with a bright golden light actually shattered bit by bit like glass. Not only the ground, but even the surrounding space and even the sky above were like fragile glass, cracking little by little in the sound of kacha kacha. Finally, it completely collapsed. Noah only felt that the sky was spinning, and immediately, the whole world collapsed. As if to replace the collapsed world, Noah was directly thrown to a place. Noah, who was suspended in the air, surveyed his surroundings. However, the scene that entered his eyes caused his pupils to involuntarily shrink. At this moment, Noah was in the darkness where there was no gravity at all. There was no sky here, nor was there any land. There was only boundless darkness. In this boundless darkness, the only source of light was a huge celestial body. Yes. Star. The place where Noah was now was called the universe by others. So, there was no gravity or even air here. The feeling of suffocation began to attack Noah's mind. Noah held his breath as he scanned the surrounding celestial bodies. The next moment, Noah's eyes gradually became dignified. Because Noah saw it. Black shadows flew out from the celestial bodies like locusts, covering the sky and the earth as they surged out from the celestial bodies. Those black shadows, some were phantasmal beasts with the appearance of various wild beasts, some were ferocious demons, and even angels with wings on their backs. With his superb sensing ability, Noah could easily detect them. Those phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons, each of them was at least a 5-digit existence. An army composed of all kinds of 5-digit existences, like bees flying out of their hive, rushed out into outer space in swarms. Their target was Noah. Teleporting people to outer space in an instant, and summoning phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons? Is there a need to consider who can do such a thing? Want to show me who's boss? Halloween Queen. Endless divine power suddenly flowed in Noah's body. In the depths of Noah's heart, the stone plate with 10 patterns on the outlines suddenly turned and pointed in one direction. The pattern of a warrior holding a golden sword. Chapter 1577. In the boundless cosmic sea, the space trembled repeatedly, causing waves of invisible ripples to reverberate in the surroundings. Amidst the frequent tremors of space ripples, the phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons rushed out from the celestial bodies like locusts. They seemed to have directly passed through an invisible door, constantly shortening the distance between them and Noah. In the past, Maxwell used the method of manipulating realms to summon servants for him to command and fight for him. However, Maxwell's method was at most using a space jump to transfer the servants from elsewhere. Now, the Queen, who manipulated the star realm, crossed the barrier between celestial bodies and celestial bodies, summoning phantasmal beasts, demons, and angels from other worlds. Although the celestial bodies seemed to be in the same space, in fact, those celestial bodies were not in the same world at all. They were just connected by the Queen of Halloween with her own power and made the creatures living in the celestial bodies of different worlds fight for her. That scene was simply a nightmare. Phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons from different worlds rushed out from the celestial bodies of different worlds, and there were simply countless of them. In other words, Noah was now facing creatures from dozens of celestial bodies. Compared with the overwhelming army that was constantly rushing out from the celestial bodies, Noah was simply a drop of water in the sea that would be drowned in an instant. However, in the face of that extremely terrifying scene, Noah's face did not show the slightest fear. The next moment, Noah chanted softly. "With my skill of words, let the justice of the world appear." This incantation is powerful and eloquent, a sword of wisdom that calls for victory. As everyone knew, sound could not be transmitted in a vacuum. However, at this moment, Noah's voice reverberated in the entire universe in an incredible manner, and it became clear and audible. Along with the voice of the spirit of speech, a dazzling golden light suddenly surged out like a tide. With Noah as the center, it instantly covered the entire surrounding space. Immediately, Noah closed his eyes and declared loudly as if talking to himself. "Queen of Halloween, you are the personification of Halloween, and also an existence that has been deified by people." The bright light that covered the entire surrounding space suddenly stagnated, and there were bursts of dim light shining inside. Halloween, also known as All Saints' Day, is a traditional Western festival. By the 2000s, this festival had become an entertainment activity. However, looking at its origin, Halloween was originally a traditional sacrifice held during the prosperous period of the ancient Celtic people. Amidst the dim light, golden swords engraved with mysterious runes gradually took shape. In an instant, they filled the entire space as though they were arrayed in a formation. In ancient times, the Celtic people had a tradition of worshipping the sun, which changed its brilliance with the change of the 4 seasons, as a symbol of life and death. Death. That was the Celtic people's belief in the sun, and that belief was the prototype of Halloween. The neatly arranged golden swords suddenly spun, the tips of the swords pointing in all directions. The day of Halloween is the day when summer officially ends, and also the beginning of the new year. On this day, the harsh winter begins. People believe that the souls of the dead will return to their former homes on this day, and look for life on the living to be reborn. Moreover, they also firmly believe that this is the only hope for people to be reborn after death. At this moment, the golden sword silently swept out, drawing a beautiful trajectory in the universe and shooting toward the locust-like phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons that were swarming over like a swarm of locusts. The living are afraid that the souls of the dead will come to seize life. Therefore, people will extinguish the fire and candles on this day, so that the souls of the dead can't find the living. They will also dress up as demons and ghosts to scare the souls of the dead away. After that, people will reignite the fire and candles, and start a new year. Therefore, this day is the time to worship the souls of the dead in ancient times. While avoiding the interference of evil spirits, they also worship the ancestral spirits and good spirits with food to pray for peace to survive the harsh winter. The phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons that were ranked in the top 5 seemed to be unusually disdainful of the golden swords that were shooting toward them. They let out a roar that could not be heard in the vacuum, and fearlessly charged toward the golden swords that were shooting toward them like raindrops. Queen of Halloween, the reason why you are the center of the Celtic gods is because Halloween is the time for the Celts to worship. On this day, the sun's radiance changes according to the changes of the seasons. The Celts worshipped the sun as the symbol of life and death. This proves that you have an extremely deep relationship with the sun. Thus, you were gradually regarded as the god of the Celtic gods, and because of this, you were deified and became the center of the Celtic gods. Just as the phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons were about to collide with the rain of golden swords that were shooting toward them like raindrops, the golden swords that were emitting a bright light suddenly stopped. However, among the Celtic gods, the real sun god is Ruger, the father of Cuchulainn, the son of light. Logically speaking, the center of the gods should be Ruger, who is the sun god, but in the end, it became you who has a deep relationship with the sun. Why is that? The golden swords that had stopped suddenly spun around and pierced into the void like meteors. The reason is very simple. The Celtic people have the concept of ancestor worship. The custom of this people is to worship their ancestors as gods. Ruger was created based on this concept. In the void that was pierced by the golden swords, the rippling power that was originally reverberating like an invisible ripple was violently cut off. Worshipping a famous person in the past as a god should be classified as a heroic spirit, but because of this, Ruger received the postnatal belief and was elevated to a god. In other words, the sun god Ruger is not the strongest kind. The invisible ripples that were cut off by the golden swords were the power of Halloween Queen's realm manipulation. This power was mercilessly cut off by the sword of spirit speech that existed specifically to cut off the Queen of Halloween's ability, disappearing without a trace like a ripple. The power that connected the star realms was cut off, and the stars in different worlds also disappeared one by one. The army of phantasmal beasts, angels, and demons that swarmed out like a swarm of locusts suddenly let out roars and shouts of unwillingness. The moment the power of the realm disappeared, they also continuously disappeared and returned to their original world. Because Ruger is not the strongest kind, in the end, as the personification of Halloween, you, who was born in the sun, will be the center of the Celtic gods who are mostly postnatal gods. You will exist as the strongest kind in Celtic mythology to manage the operation of the sun. After severing the power of the star realm and the star realm, the golden swords that covered the sky and earth immediately turned into streams of light and gathered together. In the stream of light, a huge golden sword that was more than 1,000 meters long gradually took shape. The sword body bloomed with a dazzling light like the sun. Noah suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed at the endless universe in front of him. That is to say, Queen of Halloween, although you are a festival that has been deified, you are not a god. Instead, you are a star spirit born from the sun in the realm of life and death. That is your true essence. The gigantic golden sword that reached the heavens and the earth suddenly tilted and slashed down heavily at the endless space that Noah was pointing at. Poochie. With an incredible tearing sound that could be heard in the vacuum, the huge golden sword that slashed down directly cut a crack in the endless universe. I am the strongest, and I hold all victory in my hands. Whether human or demon, I am the one who defeats the hostility of all enemies. I will defeat any enemy that stands in my way, in the holy words of the God of Victory, which symbolized the eternal invincibility of the God of Victory. The endless universe that was violently slashed began to spread with the huge crack as the center. Then, the universe that was full of cracks once again shattered little by little like fragile glass. Noah, who was floating in the cosmic sea, only felt a solid feeling coming from under his feet. The air also suddenly poured into his lungs, allowing his breath that had been held to finally return to normal. Only then did Noah slowly open his eyes. Then, a figure was imprinted into Noah's eyes. Chapter 1578. When Noah opened his eyes, the first thing that entered his field of vision was the girl who was like the incarnation of the sun. At this time, Noah had returned to the courtyard he saw before, standing in the position where he was transferred to the universe at the beginning. In front of Noah was naturally the pavilion with the round stone table. The girl, who was as bright as the sun, was sitting behind the round stone table, holding her cheek with one hand, tilting her head, and looking straight at Noah with the curious eyes of a playful girl. "Are you Noah Doria? You're much more interesting than I thought." The girl's voice was as clear as water droplets dripping on a lake. It was quite pleasant to hear. And the other party's appearance was so beautiful that people couldn't take their eyes off her. Long hair that was as bright as gold and reached her waist. Dazzling eyes that were like the combination of sky blue and emerald gems. She was wearing a princess-like dress, but also like the dance dress of a minority race. It was quite gorgeous. On her head, a crown-like headdress sat there, complementing her bright golden hair that reached down to her waist, giving off a very dazzling and noble feeling. Looking at the extraordinarily beautiful girl who was looking at him with a curious gaze, Noah's expression didn't relax at all. Because, the body of the girl who seemed to be 17 or 18 years old was an incarnation connected to the star. The strongest species that dominated day and night, life and death, spring and summer, autumn and winter, and the star realm and star realm. The star spirit of the sun, queen of Halloween. An existence equal to White Yiksha, at this time, appeared in front of Noah like a playful and cute young girl. Facing Queen of Halloween's curious gaze, Noah's eyes flashed with a somewhat sarcastic light. "It's really difficult to see you, Your Majesty." His words made the Halloween queen pout her cute little mouth, making her look more like an ordinary young girl. Then, the other party said such a sentence as if she was being difficult. "Just call me queen, I don't like that kind of a dress." "Is that so?" Noah said, unmoved. "But I also don't like the way he treated the guests just now. But thanks to this, I also know how interesting you are." Halloween Queen didn't reflect on herself at all and looked straight at Noah with a smile. "Originally, I was thinking that if the one who had the guts to have ideas about the sovereignty of the sun on me was a boring guy, then I'd simply make him disappear." Halloween Queen's words didn't carry any sense of threat. She was simply stating the truth. Clearly, the star spirit of the sun did intend to kill Noah. "If you kill me, aren't you afraid that those sealed gods will never see the sun again?" Noah didn't say that out loud. Because Noah had already understood the true cruelty hidden in the heart of the Halloween Queen. That was a monster that could not be restrained by common sense. Therefore, even if she knew that the consequences of doing so were very serious, the Halloween Queen would still do it without hesitation. The so-called problem children referred to this kind of people. No wonder even Sakura kept a respectful distance from the Halloween Queen, and Fei Si didn't dare to lead the way without the consent of the Halloween Queen. After all, if they didn't do it well, they wouldn't even know when they would be killed, and they would die very cowardly. Unfortunately, Noah was not a cowardly person. So, Noah spoke indifferently in a tone without any change in emotion. "Is it really just because of the sovereignty of the sun that you intend to make me disappear?" The Halloween Queen raised her eyebrows and said with interest. "Otherwise? Is there any other reason?" "Isn't there one?" Noah said as if he was kindly reminding her. "For example, my relationship with White Yiksha is very good, and the famous Halloween Queen is very unhappy with the friend of her biggest enemy, so she couldn't help but make a move." The smile on the Halloween Queen's face slowly disappeared, and the eyes that stared at Noah carried a frightening coldness. With the change in mood of the Halloween Queen, the surrounding space seemed to be filled with a pressure that could take away people's body temperature. However, Noah seemed to feel nothing and said to himself, I'm really glad that White Yiksha's relationship with you is not good. If her relationship with you is too good, maybe I have to keep a little distance from her. With such a sentence, Noah glanced at the Halloween Queen and suddenly smiled. After all, I don't even have a good impression of you, Your Majesty. The pressure in the air suddenly became like a storm, and it violently shook in the direction of Noah. However, at the moment of contact with Noah, the pressure seemed to be bounced off by Noah's body, disappearing without a trace like scattered water. Taking a closer look, Noah's body was flowing with a faint layer of light. That was divine power. Noah, who released a little bit of the endless divine power in his body and maintained it on the surface of his body, shrugged without changing his expression. You're angry at this level? The legendary queen's tolerance doesn't seem to be very good? The Halloween Queen looked straight at Noah, and after a while, she suddenly laughed. You're really interesting. The Halloween Queen was like a blooming flower, and a beautiful smile appeared on her face. No one has ever dared to provoke me like this in front of me. Even if there is, it is absolutely impossible to survive. Try to scare people as much as you can. Noah curled his lips. White Yiksha must have provoked you in a worse way than me. Why didn't she die? Because I can't kill her yet. The Halloween Queen puffed up her cheeks. Although it's very unpleasant, I have to admit that this is the truth. Is that so? Noah looked at the Halloween Queen with a faint smile. Then, do you think you can kill me? I can't, right? The Halloween Queen tilted her head and said somewhat naively. At least, I don't have the feeling that I can kill you. You can easily eliminate my power, and you have more sovereignty over the sun than I do. Plus, you have another cosmology. In the box, there shouldn't be anyone who can kill you, right? Oh. Noah was curious. Can't even the existence of a single-digit number? As soon as his voice fell, Noah saw the Halloween Queen looking at him with an extremely strange expression. It was as if she had heard something strange. Don't tell me you don't know anything? The Halloween Queen said. A single-digit number is the law of the world, not a tangible existence. No, it should be said that even the existence itself is uncertain. That kind of thing, you don't even know how many there are, so how can it be counted? The law of the world? Noah was stunned. A single-digit number is the law of the world? A factor that even the existence itself can't be confirmed? Is there even that kind of thing in the box? However, if there is, then it's no wonder that Noah hasn't found any description of a single-digit number in any literature. Because it's a law of the world that can't even be confirmed, and it's not even known if it exists or not. By the way, there are only 17 people in the two-digit number. In terms of strength, I can also be counted. The Halloween Queen blinked her eyes. So, if I can't kill you, no one in the box can kill you, that's what it means. Noah's heart suddenly became active. It turns out that there are only 17 people in the two-digit number. Since a single-digit number is the law of the world, the concept itself, then the 17 people in the two-digit number are probably the highest level existence in this box. If Noah could fight with his full strength, he would be able to fight against a two-digit number of enemies. That meant that no one in the box court could kill him. And if Noah gathers the sovereignty of the 24 suns and draws out all the possibilities in his body, then in this world, there won't even be an existence that can be called Noah's opponent, right? At the thought of this, Noah was even more determined to obtain the sovereignty of the sun and looked at the Halloween Queen. Let's not talk too much. Your knight said that if I come to see you in person, you will give me the sovereignty of the sun. Now, it's time to fulfill the promise. I did say that. The Halloween Queen looked at Noah and suddenly changed the topic. But, I changed my mind now. Hearing this, Noah's face froze and looked at the Halloween Queen with cold eyes. What did you say? The Halloween Queen smiled sweetly. I said, I changed my mind now. Chapter 1579. In the courtyard where the sun was shining brightly, an extremely heavy atmosphere pervaded the entire space. Noah stared fixedly at the Halloween Queen, who was smiling at him as if she had done something normal. A sharp glint gradually appeared in his eyes. Although he had long heard that Halloween Queen's temperament was erratic and she could do anything, Noah really didn't expect that this person could go back on her words. This made Noah feel like he had been played, and his eyes looking at Halloween Queen became colder and colder. As a result, the divine power that was originally flowing on Noah's body surface like a faint layer of light began to gradually boil, as if there was a flame slowly burning on Noah's body. "Do you want to attack me?" Noah's action not only did not annoy Halloween Queen, but she seemed to have seen an interesting reaction and said so with relish. "It's useless, just like I can't kill you, you certainly can't kill me. If you can't kill me, then you can't get the sun's sovereignty." In the box court, the blessings that originated from the individual were powers that were connected to the individual's soul. Without the consent of the user, even the two-digit existences standing at the top of the box court could not forcefully take away these blessings. The gifts that could be transferred at will were only those that actually existed in the form of weapons, props, and items. Sun sovereignty was a peculiar existence between the two. It could exist in the body of the holder like the gift connected to the soul, but it could also be transferred at will. It could even be integrated into weapons, props, and items to create gift weapons that were connected to the inheritance. At the beginning, when Az Dakaha was sealed, Dragon Sun sovereignty was lodged in a sword, together with the seal of the final trial of humans. Finally, through the hands of Galgi and Bel, it was transferred into Noah's body. Without the sun's sovereignty being lodged in an inherent object, if you want to obtain the sun's sovereignty in someone else's body, you have to kill the other party. That was why the Queen of Halloween said that. As long as Noah can't kill Halloween Queen, it is impossible to get the sun's sovereignty. Noah also understood this point. Noah took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and retracted his divine power back into his body. He shot the queen a cold glance, turned around, and left. Seeing this, the Halloween Queen was stunned for a moment before hurriedly speaking. "Wait. I only said that I changed my mind. I didn't say that I wouldn't give you the sovereignty of the sun." This sentence made Noah's movements slightly stagnate. Not only was there no joy in his heart, but it also made the anger that he had suppressed with great difficulty become even more vigorous. Turning around, Noah stared at the Halloween Queen with a piercing gaze. At this moment, Noah made up his mind. If the Halloween Queen couldn't give a reason, then she would turn hostile. Perhaps sensing the impatience in Noah's heart, the Halloween Queen no longer beat around the bush and spoke bluntly. "I can give you all the sun's sovereignty, but you have to promise me one thing." Noah replied without hesitation. "No way." "Good. No way." The Halloween Queen replied subconsciously, and then she realized something was wrong and spoke in astonishment. "Hey. No way." Seeing the stunned expression on the Halloween Queen's face, Noah sneered. "There is an agreement between us. If your god group gives me the sovereignty of the sun, I will release all the sealed god groups. That is to say, I have given you the conditions for you to hand over the sovereignty of the sun. Now you want to add another condition. How can there be such a good thing? I almost forgot about those guys." The Halloween Queen's voice suddenly became toneless. "What a troublesome guy, it's better to just kill them all. Is that all you want to say?" Noah closed his eyes as if he had lost all interest. "Then give me an answer. Can this deal be completed?" "Deal?" The Halloween Queen seemed to have lost interest in this matter and said casually. "What if I say no?" "It's very simple," Noah said. "No matter which god group it is, I won't release them. In that case, the gods of heaven will be furious because of this, but in a helpless situation, they will definitely attack the Celtic gods where the Halloween Queen is. At that time, whether in her position or in other places, the Halloween Queen will be targeted. For the Queen of Halloween, that was definitely not something she could be happy about. So, the Halloween Queen's brows finally frowned, and she spoke with great displeasure. Didn't those guys already give you 2 sun sovereigns? I didn't say that I will release the god group who gives me the sun sovereign. Otherwise, wouldn't those god groups who don't have the sun sovereign have nowhere to go? Noah curled his lips. Besides, my condition is that you must exchange 8 sun sovereigns. Since your god group can't give me 8 sun sovereigns, then I have no reason to release the sealed god group. The Halloween Queen was silent. After a while, the Halloween Queen looked at Noah and smiled. I didn't expect that one day, I would actually be threatened by a human. It's really something that I never thought of before. Undoubtedly, there was a flower-like beautiful smile on her face, but there was no smile in the Halloween Queen's eyes. Noah was very sure. If it weren't for the fact that the Halloween Queen was not confident in killing him, then, the Halloween Queen would have definitely done it by now. After all, Her Majesty was in existence who would kill just because she felt unhappy. Even if she maintained a smile, she would not hesitate to do cruel things. Are you really not going to consider listening to my conditions? The Halloween Queen said in a clear voice. That's just a very easy thing for you to do, isn't it? Something that I can do easily? Noah suddenly looked deeply at the Halloween Queen, as if he understood something. He suddenly spoke. I see, your purpose is to make me break up with White Yiksha? The expression on the Halloween Queen's pretty face froze. Don't be surprised. Noah shrugged. Since it's something that I can easily do, and it's something that you, the Halloween Queen, can feel happy about, then, there's only one thing I can think of. Looking at your reaction, my guess is true. The Halloween Queen didn't say anything else, she just looked at Noah and said expressionlessly. So, you won't agree? I can agree, Noah said sarcastically. It's just that I'm a very vengeful person. I generally treat others the way they treat me. Since Her Majesty went back on her words to me, then I might learn from her. In that case, will you obediently hand over the sovereignty of the sun to me? Hee hee. The Halloween Queen suddenly giggled without any warning. You're really interesting. Looking at the Halloween Queen's sudden laughter from the bottom of her heart, Noah once again realized how erratic the other party's temperament was. She was simply temperamental. Well, for the sake of you letting me spend a very meaningful time, I'll give you my sovereignty of the sun. With such a sentence, the Halloween Queen took out a gift card and placed it on the stone table in front of her, staring at Noah with great joy. 1,000 years ago, the White Yiksha King and I spent a lot of effort to compete for the sovereignty of the sun. We even became enemies with each other and became enemies. In the end, we only obtained a part of the sovereignty of the sun. 1,000 years later, she and I personally transferred our sovereignty of the sun to a human. As a price, I hope your future performance will still be as interesting as today. If you disappoint me, I may personally take it back. Noah didn't take the Halloween Queen's words to heart at all. For this temperamental queen, Noah felt that the best way to treat her was to ignore her. Therefore, Noah's gaze turned directly to the gift card on the stone table. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, he stepped forward and picked up the gift card. A dazzling light shone and rushed to Noah's palm like flowing water and merged into Noah's body. Noah finally obtained all the sovereignty of the sun. Chapter 1580. Rumble. Above the boundless sky, a thundercloud suddenly appeared. Like a wave, it surged to the other side of the sky. A chariot was being pulled by 2 raging bulls with lightning flashing all over their bodies. Along with the thundercloud that filled the sky, the chariot was moving forward. Of course, the thundercloud that filled the sky didn't come from the chariot. Instead, it came from the bodies of the 2 raging bulls. The 2 raging bulls that were surrounded by lightning and carrying the thundercloud were both divine beasts that had been bestowed with godhead. Under the pull of the 2 raging bulls, the chariot was running wildly in the sky. And on the chariot, there were 3 people standing. Myron Shirtion was holding the reins and driving the 2 raging bulls with godhead as if they were riding horses. He was driving the chariot in an extremely wild manner as he galloped forward. Noah and Fei Si stood behind Myron Shirtion. Looking at Myron Shertion, who was skillfully driving the two raging bulls and using them as horses to pull the chariot, they couldn't help but look at each other. Should I say, as expected of the king of gods of the Indian gods? Noah spread out his hands. Even if he descends from the heavens and becomes a human, his majesty as the celestial emperor is still there. He can casually command two divine beasts with godhead. Those two divine beasts seem to be His Excellency Shertion's chariot when he was still a god. Fei Si also had some feelings. Even if Master descends from the heavens and becomes a human, he still performs his duties without hesitation. It's admirable. After descending from the heavens and becoming a human, Myron Shertion's power was simply unbearable to look at compared to when he was Sakra. Not to mention other things, after becoming a human, Myron Shertion couldn't fly anymore. He could only rely on a chariot to travel in the sky. However, it had to be said that traveling in the sky in this way was more exciting than flying by himself. In the eyes of others, it was a more eye-catching scene. Moreover, Myron Shertion's chariot was quite luxurious. It was quite eye-catching. As the chariot of the famous Sakra, Noah's Gate of Babylon also had this chariot. However, there was a war chariot, but there was no climate ox that could pull it. Naturally, Imperial Gate Shertion's chariot was more eye-catching. Don't waste my time, Human Shertion said without turning his head as he drove the war chariot. With your abilities, it wouldn't be difficult for you to get the same ride. The only problem is that it isn't easy to get two godhead climate bulls. Saying these words, Ms. Otto Shertion fiercely pulled on the reins, causing the two climate bulls to let out a muffled groan, stopping their madly galloping footsteps. Done. Human Shertion immediately released the reins in his hand and looked at Noah. Release the group of gods you have sealed here. Fei Si also looked at Noah, obviously waiting for Noah to fulfill his promise. Noah naturally wouldn't be like the Halloween queen, whose temperament was unstable. He would go back on his word and compromise as he wished. Under the gaze of Human Shertion and Fei Si, Noah turned around and faced the boundless sky behind him. He stretched out his hands, as if he was planning to use his palms to hug a sphere, and put his hands together in front of his body. Clang! An extremely strong burst of starlight suddenly bloomed in the center of Noah's palms, turning into a light pillar that suddenly soared into the sky. In an instant, it disappeared into the boundless sky above, and gradually expanded. In the light pillar, one after another, as if they were ruthlessly thrown out, jumped out one after another, and fell into the sky in an extremely embarrassing manner. The light on their body dispersed, revealing their full appearance. In just a short while, the entire sky was densely packed with panic-stricken figures that stabilized themselves and floated in mid-air, causing a real sea of people to appear in the sky. At the forefront of the sea of people, there was still a group of existences that were the strongest among the various groups of gods, numbering in the 3 digits. With the ancient wind divine spirit as the leader, this group of strongest existences struggled to recover from the sudden state of affairs, stabilizing their bodies, and not being as embarrassed as the other gods. Then, this group of strongest existences saw Noah standing on the chariot. All of the strongest existences were shocked and angry, and their bodies surged with an astonishing aura. Damn it! Bastard! How dare you seal us? Just a mere human. With the eruption of the aura of the strongest existences, the gods and Buddhas in the sky finally noticed Noah's existence, and one after another, they revealed shocked and angry expressions. However, before the gods and Buddhas in the sky could erupt, an extremely sharp gaze swept across all of them. Don't tell me you want to be sealed again? Noah's pair of deep, dark eyes flashed with a sharp light. I don't mind doing it again, but this time, don't even think about coming out again. His extremely clear voice reverberated throughout the entire sky, causing the gods and Buddhas to stop breathing, and finally, fear appeared on their faces. Including the strongest existences. At this moment, Fei Si stepped forward and came to Noah's side. She raised her hand, and a flag appeared in her hand, fluttering in the wind. That's... The ancient wind divine spirit's expression changed. The flag of the Queen of Halloween? This is an order from the Queen of Halloween. Phase C immediately declared loudly. All the Celtic gods and their subordinate communities are not allowed to be enemies with the human hero Noah Dole. All of you, stand down. A commotion began among the gods and Buddhas in the sky. At this moment, Imman stepped forward again and raised a flag. Seeing that flag, the commotion among the gods and Buddhas in the sky became even more intense. That was because that flag was the flag of the Sky Army. The Sky Army, which was established to annihilate the Demon King, had the martial gods from various mythological systems. And those martial gods were all led by Di-Shir-Tian. In other words, Imman was the leader of the Sky Army. Therefore, when Imman raised the Sky Army's flag, almost all the gods and Buddhas recognized his identity. D. Sakra? Why? Why is he here? Ignoring the commotion among the gods and Buddhas in the sky, Imman also declared loudly. This is an order from the leader of all the gods and Buddhas in the Sky Army. I hereby declare that from today onwards, all the gods and Buddhas in the heavenly realm are not allowed to be enemies with the human hero Noah Dole. Everyone, return to the upper level without delay. The whole place fell into a dead silence. All the gods and Buddhas entered a state of confusion, including the strongest gods and Buddhas. Sakra. The ancient wind divine spirit clenched his fists and shouted. What the hell is going on? What's going on? Imman face was expressionless. Can't you guys guess? Hearing this, the gods and Buddhas looked at each other and vaguely guessed the reason for this development. You are using us as hostages to force the gods and Buddhas in the heavenly realm to compromise? The ancient wind divine spirit glared at Noah. Despicable. Despicable? Noah said sarcastically as if he was amused. So that's how it is. Using hostages is despicable and shameless, and seizing by force is noble character and unquestionable integrity. Thank you for your guidance. The ancient wind divine spirit was speechless, but he couldn't swallow his anger. He looked at Imman with a gloomy face. Sakra, are we just going to let this go? Do you still want to cause trouble for him? Imman acted as if this had nothing to do with him and didn't care. I don't object, but the premise is that you have a way to deal with the another cosmology of the illusory star Tice way. Let me make it clear in advance, in order to save you, we paid a total of 8 sun sovereignty as the price. If you are sealed again, then this time, no one will be able to save you. 8 sun sovereigns? The ancient wind divine spirit was shocked. Doesn't that mean that the human has gathered all the sun sovereigns? That's right. Imman looked at the ancient wind divine spirit. So, let's stop here. All of you, go back. This time, the gods of the heavenly realm have lost. The ancient wind divine spirit's expression suddenly became ugly. Glaring at Noah with hatred, the ancient wind divine spirit squeezed out a few words. Let's retreat. The gods and Buddhas in the sky didn't dare to say anything. As a result, the mighty group of gods and Buddhas flew to the other side of the sky, their figures gradually disappearing. Looking at the sky full of gods and Buddhas disappear into the horizon, Imman let out a sigh of relief and muttered. I hope those guys don't do anything troublesome and make it difficult to deal with. Hearing Imman words clearly, Noah sneered in his heart. If there was a next time, it wouldn't be as simple as sealing them. Chapter 1581. After releasing the gods of heaven sealed by the another cosmology, Imman drove the Climate Ox chariot and sent Noah and Faith back to the castle. The chariot landed in a corner of the castle and the three of them got off. All right, the gods have been dealt with. It's about time for me to go back. Imperial Gate Shirtion looked relaxed. I'll have to trouble you to worry about the lower realm. Hearing this, Noah and Fei Si were slightly surprised. What? Noah could not help but ask. Aren't you going to stay? Stay? Imperial Gate Shirtian asked curiously. Why should I stay? Stay to deal with Az Dakaha. Noah frowned. Anyway, you've already descended to become a human, not a god. Even that lizard's another cosmology won't work on you anymore. Isn't it good to stay and help? Although Imperial Gate Shirtian's power had greatly decreased compared to when he was the king of gods, he was still in the 4 digits. If such a helper were to stay, it would be a great help to them. After all, in the camp, there were only a handful of people who could reach the 4 digits. If Imperial Gate Shirtian stayed to help deal with Az Dakaha, he would be able to share the burden of many people. Noah thought that Mighten Shirtian was planning to stay behind and deal with Aziz Dakaha with the rest of the group. Why did it seem like Imperial Gate Shirtian had no such plans? It was unknown if human Shirtian had seen through Noah's thoughts, but he could not help but laugh. You're right. I have no plans to fight Az Dakaha with you. Noah's brows furrowed even tighter. Not to mention Noah, even Feisy had a confused look on her face. Seeing that, human Shirtian sighed and asked such a question. Do you know what the essence of the final trial is? Feisy was slightly startled by this question. The essence of the final trial? Noah said uncertainly. Isn't it just a trial given to humans? That's right. The so-called humans' final trial is, in fact, a trial given to humans. Human Shirtian nodded. The humans' final trial was created because of humans. Since it is a trial for humans, what kind of training do you think their existence is for humans? Myron Shirtian's words caused Noah's heart to suddenly move. Humanity's final trial, a trial for humanity. Noah raised his eyes and looked at human Shirtian. That is a trial for the entire human race, not for individuals. Correct. Human Shirtian nodded heavily. Humanity's final trial is a trial given to the entire history of humanity. Once it is passed, humanity's history can develop. Otherwise, sooner or later, it will be destroyed. In other words, although humanity's final trial is an extremely frightening calamity that symbolizes the end of humanity, it is also a game to create the future of humanity. Thus, humanity has the obligation to defeat it. Human Shirtian spread his hands. Although I descended to become a human, no matter what, I am unable to defeat humanity's final trial. It is an existence that cannot die. What? Feisy said in surprise. Didn't you say that piercing through Az Dahaka's heart would be enough to defeat him? You are wrong, Queen Knight. Human Shirtian shook his head. If piercing through his heart could defeat Az Dahaka, then Az Dahaka would have died at least 3 times. 3 times? Feisy was stunned. When Az Dahaka first became humanity's final trial, the martial gods of the heaven realm led by me descended to become a human and fought with him. The ceiling pillars on his head and shoulders were placed by us when we descended, and at the same time, pierced through his heart. Human Shirtian explained. However, that fellow suddenly came back to life, leaving us with no choice but to seal him up. Later on, that fellow broke out of the seal and caused a huge ruckus 200 years ago. In the end, he was sealed up by the great alliance of Stratum rulers led by No Name, who had yet to lose his name and flag. Even so, we were still unable to take his life. At this point, human Shirtian cast a meaningful gaze at Noah, who did not look surprised at all. And seeing that you don't look surprised at all, a month ago, when you fought with Az Dahaka, who had just broken out of the seal, you should have also successfully killed him once, right? Yes. Noah said helplessly. In the end, that guy suddenly came back to life and attacked me. I was careless and was hit, suffering heavy injuries. That was how I ended up defeated. That's already very impressive. Human Shirtian laughed bitterly. We, the gods of the heaven realm, only managed to kill him once. 200 years ago, the great alliance of the Stratum dominators gathered many powerful communities, including a 4-digit number, and only managed to kill him once. Yet, you managed to kill him single-handedly. You have the right to boast. But, since we can't kill Az Dahaka, what should we do? Fei Si had a bitter look on her face. Could it be that we can only obediently wait for death? Of course not. Yuman Shirtian answered directly. If you want to defeat humanity's final trial, it's impossible to rely on brute force alone. Since that's the embodiment of humanity's doomsday, then as long as we can unravel the cause of humanity's doomsday, it's possible to defeat him. The cause of humanity's doomsday. Noah muttered to himself. We, the Sky Army, have also researched the mystery of Az Dahaka's final trial. In the end, although we've solved most of it, we still can't confirm the key parts. Yuman Shirtian looked closely at Noah. So, I can only give you a hint. Noah immediately perked up. Under such circumstances, Yuman Shirtian said solemnly. If you want to solve Az Dahaka's mystery, then you have to start from the evil aspect. Evil? Noah was stunned. After all, that guy is an existence known as absolute evil, and he's also the evil god of the sect of fire. Since he became humanity's final trial, then, the cause of humanity's destruction and the cause of Az Dahaka's final trial must be related to evil. Yuman Shirtian patted Noah's shoulder. Whether or not you can solve the mystery of humanity's final trial will depend on whether you can see through Az Dahaka's evil, and see through humanity's evil. Noah lowered his head slightly, some ripples in his dark, deep eyes. After separating from Yuman Shirtian, Noah and Fei Si returned to the minister's hall together, and then separated in the main hall of the minister's hall, returning to their respective bases. Because the girls from No Name had not returned, and Ren was taking care of 16th Night, the entire base was terrifyingly quiet. Noah directly returned to his room, lay on his bed, closed his eyes, and recalled what Yuman Shirtian had said to him. Is it related to evil? Noah had already made several guesses about the mystery of Az Dahaka's final trial. Now, with Yuman Shirtian's hint, Noah immediately narrowed down the scope. Az Dahaka had once said that he was absolute evil, and only by crossing over his corpse could one be considered righteous. This just so happened to confirm the accuracy of this statement. It seems that if I want to solve the mystery of Az Dahaka's final trial as a human, I have to start from two aspects. Az Dahaka was the evil god of the sect of fire. If he wanted to solve the mystery, he had to first understand the evil of the three-headed demonic dragon in the sect of fire. Az Dahaka was also a human's final trial. Because he was an existence that was born from the elements that caused the destruction of humans, he naturally had to find the answer from the evil of humans. The evil of humans and the evil of gods, what is the relationship between these two evils? Noah felt that he seemed to have begun to come into contact with the key to solving the mystery. I'll go back and discuss this with Athena. After making up his mind, Noah temporarily suppressed the matter of Az Dahaka in the bottom of his heart, and his mind was immersed in the depths of his heart. At this time, in the depths of Noah's heart, on the stone plate suspended in the center of the cosmic sea, the sun's imprint was evenly occupied by the 24 engravings. Looking at the 24 engravings that occupied all the space inside the sun, Noah's mood could not help but become a little impetuous. Now, all the sovereignty of the sun had been gathered. It was time to draw out all the possibilities in his body. With this thought, Noah's mind directly sank into the sun's imprint. Chapter 1582. Clang. When Noah's mind sank into the sun's brand, the 24 different engravings in the sun shone with dazzling light. That light was more dazzling and resplendent than when Noah had tried to use the sun's sovereignty to guide his own possibility. Compared to the last time, this time, it was not only the number of sun sovereigns that differed, but also the difference between incomplete and complete sun sovereigns. The 24 sun sovereigns were only considered complete sun when they were gathered. They could control the power of the sun in countless parallel worlds and even boxes. Now, this power was in Noah's body. With the awakening of this power, Noah's originally somewhat excited mood gradually calmed down. He calmed down and focused all his attention on the 24 sun sovereigns. Dazzling light surged like a tide, spreading across the entire cosmic sea like a million miles of brilliance. Just like the last time, the dazzling light illuminated the entire cosmic sea and directly shone out of the cosmic sea, gently sprinkling on every corner of Noah's body. Noah, who had already experienced it once, did not let the power of the sun's sovereignty stay in his body. Instead, he followed the memory of the last time and gathered all the light in one direction. If someone knew the situation in Noah's body clearly, they would definitely be able to discover it. That direction was the deepest part of Noah's body. Under the cover of the dazzling light that gradually gathered, a throbbing began to occur in the deepest part of Noah's body. Noah was neither happy nor sad. He gathered more of the power of the sun's sovereignty together and gathered it in the deepest part of his body, trying to connect with the throbbing possibility. Suddenly, the dazzling light condensed from the power of the 24 sun's sovereignty was like a spider web, entangling the throbbing possibility bit by bit. When all the light gathered together and firmly entangled the throbbing possibility in the deepest part of Noah's body, Noah took a deep breath. With a thought, he let the dazzling light slowly draw out the throbbing possibility. Last time, he had failed at this step. As the power of the sun's sovereignty was not enough to draw out all the possibilities in Noah's body, even though the power of the sun's sovereignty firmly wrapped around Noah's possibilities, those huge possibilities were still hidden in the deepest part of Noah's body, not even to the extent of popping out. This time, Noah gathered the power of all 24 sovereign suns in the deepest part of his body without wasting a single bit. He connected with the throbbing and carefully pulled it out. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The possibility that was originally just a little throbbing suddenly trembled violently like never before. This phenomenon did not surprise Noah. Instead, it delighted Noah. It was good that there was a reaction. What he was most afraid of was that it didn't respond. If there was no reaction, then there was no way to start anything. And if it reacted, it meant that at the very least, this action could affect it and make it react. Therefore, without any hesitation, Noah focused all his attention and manipulated the power of the sun's sovereignty. He pulled out the possibility hidden deep in his body little by little. Buzz, 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 buzz. The throbbing possibility trembled even more violently. Under such circumstances, the huge possibility finally emerged a little. However, before Noah could react, an accident happened. The slight possibility that emerged from Noah's body suddenly trembled violently. Bang! The dazzling light entangled in the throbbing possibility suddenly exploded, turning into a burst of light particles and gradually disappearing. On the other hand, the huge possibility that was drawn out seemed to have gone berserk. Not only did it shrink back into the depths of Noah's body, but it also started to tremble violently. In the next second, a huge impact exploded in Noah's body. The sudden change made Noah's heart stop. Then, the impact of the explosion directly rushed to Noah's mind, making Noah feel a pain in his head. Immediately, the feeling of the world spinning attacked him. At this moment, Noah's consciousness was cut off. At this moment, Noah only felt that his whole body seemed to be trying to rise to somewhere, and kept moving upwards. That feeling was like his soul was out of his body. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? In the midst of the spinning world, Noah only had time to have such a question. Then, at a certain moment, Noah felt that the spinning world began to gradually disappear. However, his body felt light, as if he was floating in the sky. Immediately, Noah opened his eyes. As soon as he opened his eyes, Noah was stunned. Because, what entered Noah's eyes was not the room he was familiar with, but a pure white space. And in this pure white space, pieces of feathers that emitted a soft white light were like leaves floating in the ocean, gently floating around. Looking at this scene, Noah was stunned. A pure white space with feathers that emitted a soft white light floating around? Noah only knew of one place like this. Between the worlds? Without a doubt, this was between the worlds. Why did I return to between the worlds? Before this question could be answered, Noah found that something was wrong. The first thing that was wrong was Noah's body. This body was like it did not exist at all, just floating there. It was weightless, and he could not feel any heat. It was like the soul itself, which was very strange. The second thing that was wrong was the pieces of feathers. In the past, when Noah returned to Between the Worlds, those feathers that were like spoiled little birds would gather around him, as if they were greeting him and spinning around. This time, those feathers did not seem to notice Noah's existence, as they continued to float around in the infinite pure white space, completely ignoring Noah. These two things that were wrong were obviously telling Noah something. The current situation was very strange. Just as Noah was feeling uncertain, his body suddenly began to uncontrollably fly up again. What is going on? Noah could only try his best to regain control of his body. However, this was obviously not Noah's body, so how could Noah regain control? In the end, Noah could only helplessly allow his body to uncontrollably fly up, and in the end, he was getting further and further away from those feathers. Noah could only raise his head and look at the sky. In the next second, Noah was surprised. Because, in the sky above the originally pure white, Between the Worlds, a dark red sky had appeared out of nowhere. Noah was getting closer and closer to the dark red sky, and even directly disappeared into it. Noah only felt a blur in front of his eyes, and then, the scene of the entire space changed. The pure white space turned into a dark red space. In this crimson space, red shadows were flying back and forth. It was a very strange sight. For some reason, looking at the red shadows flying back and forth, Noah had an unprecedented feeling of horror. Not only because the scene was very strange, but also because the red shadows flying back and forth were like the Grim Reaper wearing a cloak and holding a sickle. In other words, in this dark red space, there were countless red Grim Reapers flying back and forth. What is this place? Noah resisted the creepy feeling in his heart, and looked around. At this time, Noah's body involuntarily floated forward again. Noah could only allow his body to float forward as he cast his gaze forward. After an unknown amount of time, Noah saw it. He saw a pitch-black sphere. In the entire dark red world, it was the only existence with other colors. But, looking at the dark ball, Noah's creepy feeling in his heart became more and more intense. It was also at this moment that the pitch-black ball moved. It turned over. Above the black orb that had turned over, there was actually a dark red pupil. That was an eye, staring in the direction of Noah. Noah's head exploded with a boom. In the room, Noah, who was lying on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes, his whole face covered in cold sweat. Recalling what he just saw, Noah covered his head, and murmured in a daze. What is that? You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.